A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Jerry of the Circus. Jerry of the Circus.
Oh, dear, I do wish we didn't have to wait.
The nurse said they're changing his bandages.
I suppose we did get here too early this morning. But honestly, Jerry, I didn't sleep a wink last night.
I'm afraid I didn't sleep very well either, Patsy.
I kept hearing those guns and shouts, and when I finally did doze off, I'd either see glaring eyes or big shapeless things would jump at me from the dark, and I'd wake up and not dare to go to sleep again.
Oh, how awful, Patsy.
Thank heavens Jason slept. You did say the nurse said he had a good night, didn't you?
Yeah, she said he's really fine this morning.
You know the time he got hurt several years ago? The nurses and doctors said they never saw anyone mend as quickly as he did.
Dr. Bishop, report to the front office, please.
Say, Patsy.
Yeah?
Why, look.
What's the matter, Jerry?
You've lost that bracelet. The one that you got from
you
Boris.
mean the one that belonged to the Rusoff family?
Yeah, that fancy one Boris gave you.
I didn't lose it, Jerry. You see, well, after last night, I just couldn't wear it anymore, so I gave it back to Boris, and...
Gee, I'm glad.
You're funny. What difference could it possibly make to you?
Oh, none, only... Well, after all, there's Jason, and... Say, I'll bet Boris was sure mad when he gave it back to him.
Oh, I'm afraid he was hurt.
Yeah? It'll do him good.
Why, Jerry, I never heard you talk like that about anyone before.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. He's not nice to other people, and you're too good for him. No, sir, he's gotten just what he deserves.
Well, I guess we'd better change the subject.
Gee, it must be about time for them to let us see Jason.
I hope so. Oh, there's the nurse.
You see Mr. Jason now.
Thanks. Gee, is he going to be all right?
You don't need to worry about Mr. Jason. He's a marvelous patient. I was on last night when they brought him in.
You were?
Mm-hmm. I've never seen anyone with as much nerve and courage as that man. Not a peep out of him all the time they dressed those wounds.
Oh, he's brave, all right.
I'll say.
Oh, here we are. Just a minute now.
Come in.
Mr. Jason, I've a couple of visitors here, if you'd like to see them.
Sure. Come on in. Who's out there?
Hello, Jason.
Jerry.
Hello, Jason.
And Patsy. Now, if this isn't a grand surprise. Gee, nurse, I can't think of anything that would please me more.
Gee whiz, they got you covered up. I can hardly see your face.
Maybe it's just as well.
I'll leave you for a while, then. Be careful, though, not to excite the patient.
Imagine. As if I wouldn't be excited just seeing you. Oh, Patsy, what's wrong? Haven't heard a word out of you.
I hardly know what to say. Oh, Jason, you're sure you're going to be all right?
You bet I am. Fit as a fiddle. In double quick time, too.
Say, your arms are all covered, too. Gee, are you going to be able to work, Jason?
They're just scratched a little.
Listen, panthers don't scratch just a little.
Well, let's not talk about me. What about you?
I tried to find out what they were going to do with Streak this morning, but no one seemed to know.
I think Mr. Randall has decided definitely about that.
Yeah? Streak's cage was all boarded up when I went by there. Kind of wondered what was in the wind.
Well, Mr. Randall was here early this morning.
Yeah, I knew that.
We talked it all over. From what happened last night, there's no doubt but that Streak's gone bad.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
Jumping Jupiter, that's fierce. Does that mean they'll have to shoot him?
They usually do just that. But Streak's such a valuable specimen, they've decided to put him in a specially constructed cage and sell him to one of the zoos.
Oh, but Jason, is that safe?
Oh, yes, it's safe enough. You see, when the attendants know what they have to deal with, they can protect themselves.
Oh.
It's when an animal's supposed to be all right and suddenly goes bad that there's real danger.
Will people visiting the zoo be allowed to see him?
Sure. He'll probably be one of the zoo's biggest attractions. Black panthers are mighty scarce.
Poor Streak. He'll sure miss the freedom he had with the circus.
Yes, but he's lucky to be allowed to live after what happened last night.
It's a wonder one of those guards didn't kill him.
They would have if we'd been alone in the cage.
Seems to me they should have shot him anyhow. If they'd done it in time, you wouldn't have been hurt.
You forget that steel was filled with lions and tigers.
Well, what difference does that make?
A lot. It's always more dangerous working with a steel full of mixed cats like that.
I'll say.
Oh.
You see, Patsy, if the guards had shot down the panther while I was still in there, the other animals would probably have all piled on the two of us.
Oh, Jason, don't. That's awful.
Say, it's sure lucky those guards know their business, isn't it?
It's necessary. Man's a fool to go into a steel without having trained men around to handle every emergency. Nothing courageous about taking unnecessary risks.
If you ask me, just doing the kind of work you do takes about the most nerve of anything I know.
You're forgetting Patsy. She goes way up to the top of the tent and flies out into the air half the time with no nets below her. Don't you think that takes courage?
Yeah, I guess it does. You bet. Nothing between her and death. I guess I was talking without thinking.
I'm like Jason, though, Jerry. I see that those trapezes are checked every day. We've got to have nerve in our business, but we can't depend on it entirely.
You got to use your brains, too, huh?
I'll say.
Say, Jason, will you be able to work again this season?
What? Jerry Dugan, what are you talking about? You don't think I'm staying in this hospital?
Well, no, of course not. Only I meant, well, will you be able to work the cats before we go into winter quarters?
Oh, can you beat that kid, Patsy? Listen, Jerry, I'm leaving here tomorrow night with the show.
Oh, Jason, that's too soon.
Indeed, it's not. I'm opening in Rossville the following day.
Does Mr. Randall know that?
Most certainly does. I told him this morning. You don't think I'd let a couple of scratches keep me from working, do you?
But, Jason, you've got to take care of yourself.
But
And
what about your bandages?
I'll manage. I'll wear a long-sleeve shirt that'll cover my arms.
But you can't go into the steel with your face all bandaged up like that.
I won't. I may have to wear a cap or a turban on my head for a few days, but that's nothing.
Well, there's no use talking him out of it, Jerry. Once Jason makes his mind up about something, you might as well talk to a blank wall as to try to convince him he's wrong.
Well, folks, I think my patient has had enough excitement for today.
Oh, gee, do we have to go? We've only just started talking.
You may have gotten started, but I've hardly had a chance at all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I do talk an awful lot.
Can't they stay a while, nurse?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Jason, but these are doctor's orders.
Well, I guess he ought to know. Goodbye, Jason. You don't know how happy I am that you're as well as you are.
Say, Jason, did you notice Patsy's not wearing that bracelet anymore?
Jerry.
Well, I think Jason ought to know.
Really, Patsy?
Jerry's right, Jason.
That's the best news I've had in a long time. Listen, I'll be out of here so fast.
Oh, no, you won't. Now, just lie down and be quiet. I'm afraid you two will have to leave now.
Goodbye, Jason.
Goodbye, Patsy. Listen here, Jerry. You take good care of Patsy now till I get back.
You bet I will. Goodbye, Jason, and do what the doctor says.
Where have you been all day, Jerry?
Oh, hello there, Uncle Dan. Hey, where'd you get that nifty suit?
I wondered if you'd notice it.
Notice it? Gee, I can hardly see you for the suit.
Oh, it's a nice suit, isn't it, Jerry?
I'll tell the world.
Well, what's the matter? Don't you, well, don't tell me that you've lost that curiosity of yours. Now, aren't you going to ask me where I got it?
Oh, I don't have to. I can guess.
Is that so? Well, where then?
Well, I'll bet Mr. Randall bought it for you.
So you remember that wager we had?
Sure I do. Well, you sure got a swell suit, Uncle Dan.
Yep, I'm all dressed up, and I'm going to go over and show off in front of Jason.
Good for you. We saw him this morning.
We? Who's we?
Patsy and... Oh, gee, I've got to go get dressed. See you later, Uncle Dan.
Okay. Knock 'em dead, Jerry. Oh, hello there, Olga. Haven't seen you in a long
Oh,
time.
it is Jerry's uncle, yes?
That's right.
I still don't come out here during the show, but Boris is just coming off now, and he asked me to bring him this letter.
Here he comes now. Well, glad to have seen you, Olga. I have a call to make, so I'll have to run along, too.
Goodbye, Mr. Dugan.
What were you talking to Danny Dugan about, Olga?
Nothing, Boris. Why? He just happened to be here.
I don't like him. He's a smart man, yes. But sometimes it's just as well not to have smart men around.
That is silly talk. Where would the Russovs be if we weren't for your cleverness?
Yes, but today I don't feel so clever. Oh, drat that accident Jason had last night.
What difference does it make to you?
All the difference in the world. Are you forgetting Patsy?
No, but I thought she was eating out of your hand.
Yes, so did I, till that blasted panther tore into Jason.
What difference could that possibly make?
You're a woman. You ought to know.
Oh, she's worried about the sick one, eh?
Yeah, so much that she makes me give back the brace.
No, that is bad.
Bad. From the way she talked last night, we might as well kiss that little fortune of hers goodbye.
Oh, no, Boris. Perhaps she's just emotional now about Jason because of the narrow escape. But when he is safe and well, she will come back to you.
From what I've seen of that little woman, she knows her own mind and has plenty of spunk.
Boris, if we should lose that money now,
We have already lost it, my dear Olga.
After all the time we have wasted on her?
I am not one to be kept dangling. I have already forgotten. I have other plans.
What?
Never you mind, Olga. I think next time I will do better to work out things by myself. The last 2 times I have tried to get help from you, our plans have turned out badly. Now I work alone.
Oh, I forgot, Boris. Here is that letter you were asking for.
So it has come. Why didn't you give it to me right away?
I meant to, Boris, but we were talking.
Always talking. It is time we do something. Good. So he has done what I told him. That is good.
What is it, Boris? Something important?
You bet it's important.
Well, what is it?
You want to know, huh? Just like a woman.
Well, I thought I might help, perhaps.
Yes, from the experience I've had, I think next time I will not ask for help. No. From now on, Boris is a lone eagle.
But, Boris...
Now, be quiet. Now, say nothing of this letter to anyone. I think I'm beginning to see a way to lay my hands on a circus. Yes, sir. I think it can be done. Now, go on, Olga. Get out of here.
All right, Boris, if you feel that way.
Oh, Jerry, good morning. I mean, good afternoon.
Hello, Boris.
I hear you visited our friend Jason this morning.
Yes, I did.
He is better, I hope.
Why, yes, of course. He's doing swell.
I'm very glad to hear that. Perhaps I'd better see him myself.
He's leaving with the show tomorrow night.
Then he's indeed in good shape, and that is fine. Mademoiselle Patsy.
Hello, Boris.
You look beautiful as ever today.
Thank you, Boris.
I was just asking about our friend Jason. Well, I have an errand. I must go. Goodbye, my friend.
Goodbye. Well, can you beat that?
There, I told you he was nice, Jerry.
Yeah? Seems to me there's something strange about all this.
Oh, Jerry, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Now, don't tell me you're back at being a detective again.
Autolite and its 98,000 dealers bring you Mr. MacDonald Carey in a story based on fact. Tonight's presentation of Suspense.
Tonight, with names and places changed, Autolite presents the true story of a man who, to all intents and purposes, disappeared from the face of the earth. The dramatization is called The Missing Person. Our star, Mr. MacDonald Carey.
Say, Harlow, what's that little book for?
Why, Hap, that's my mileage record. And it's proved to me that it's mighty important to always make sure my spark plugs are functioning properly.
Well, what do you mean, Harlow?
Well, spark plugs are the heart of a car's ignition system. They've got to be right. So I see my Autolite spark plug dealer every few months. He compares my spark plugs with the exclusive Autolite plug check indicator. If he finds my spark plugs are worn out, he puts in world-famous ignition-engineered Autolite spark plugs for smoother performance, quick starts, and gas saving.
You believe in top performance, eh, Harlow?
I sure do, Hap, and I know it pays. So, friends, take a tip from me and have your spark plugs checked this week. See your neighborhood Autolite spark plug dealer. And if replacements are needed, have him install standard or resistor type Autolite spark plugs. The spark plugs that are world famous for quality and performance. And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
Now, with The Missing Person and the performance of Mr. MacDonald Carey, Autolite hopes once again to keep you in suspense.
At approximately 7:30 p.m., the Thursday night of March 10th, 1948, Joseph Ebner, at the time 38 years of age, said goodbye to his wife Martha and left his home at 1210 East Bethany Road in Burbank, California. He drove a light gray sedan, license plate 702R3228, over Cahuenga Pass to downtown Los Angeles. His destination? The Civic Auditorium. Joseph Ebner is a musician, first violinist and concertmaster with the Los Angeles Symphony Orchestra. He was on his way to play in a concert. Ebner arrived at the auditorium a little after 8 o'clock. After changing into his dress suit, he smoked a cigarette and mingled with his fellow musicians in the hall down under the stage. A few moments before the orchestra's conductor, Maestro Carlo Finello, raised his baton at 8:33, Joseph Ebner excused himself. He said he'd forgotten something back down in his locker. He turned, left the hall, and was never heard from again. My name is Dexter, Phil Dexter. I'm a writer. I've written columns for some of the biggest dailies in the country. You may have read some of my stuff. Right now, I'm doing feature articles for a magazine called The Real Story. About 10 days ago, the managing editor, Brad Luby, called me into his office.
Phil, sit down.
Thanks.
Phil, how much do you know about missing persons?
Like Will Rogers, Brad, all I know is what I read in the papers.
Well, thousands of people disappear every year. Some don't want to disappear, and they do. Some want to disappear, and they do.
But eventually they turn up, dead or alive.
Agreed. Eventually, 95% of them turn up again, dead or alive. A week, a month, a year, even 10 years later. But what about the other 5%, Phil? The 5% that vanish and are never heard from again. What about them?
I don't know.
That's the story I want, Phil. Now, I got a list here from the police department. Bureau of Missing Persons. Take a look at it.
It's a list of names.
Right. Now, you've got your choice. Pick any one of the names you want. I don't care who it is.
Well, how about this one here? Ebner. Joseph Ebner.
The musician. Okay, follow it up. You try to find Joseph Ebner, Phil. And if you find him, ask him why he disappeared.
And so the search for Joseph Ebner began again. a one-man search. I wasn't too familiar with Ebner's case and needed briefing. I spent the whole afternoon going through his file at the Police Department Bureau of Missing Persons. It was one of the most comprehensive files in anyone's life I've ever come across. Information which began with Ebner's birth in Evanston, Illinois in 1910, up to and including the color of his socks the night of his disappearance in 1948. Under vital statistics, I learned that Ebner was married to a woman named Martha. He had 2 children, 2 boys, ages 11 and 14. 3 years before the night he disappeared, he'd purchased his own home in Burbank. That's where I decided to start.
I don't understand this concern. After 4 years that Joseph's been away from home, such concern. I really don't understand it, Mr. Dexter.
Oh, look, Mrs. Ebner, if you'd rather not discuss
Not talk about it? Well, that's ridiculous. That's all I've done for 4 years is talk about it. All kinds of people have asked me about Joseph. But why shouldn't they? He's a fine musician. He's gone away for a little while. There's nothing to be ashamed of, is there?
Of course not. What kind of man is your husband, Mrs. Ebner?
A good man, Mr. Dexter. Good to me, good to his children. He gives us everything.
Is your husband a happy man, Mrs. Ebner?
Happy? He never complains. He's satisfied. He gives us everything. Why would he have left? I don't know.
Are you sure he left of his own free will?
He has everything a man could want. Makes good money, good children, good home. Why, just the year before he left, we had the music room added on.
The music room?
Yes, it's his. Oh, Joseph composed the music, you know. Beautiful music. Would you like to see it?
Very much.
Oh, this way. Come in. Isn't it beautiful, Mr. Dexter? You see, there's his stand, his books, his piano. Just as he left them the night he went away. I want them to be just like that when he comes home.
Is this some of his music?
Yes, that's something he's working on. I don't know what it is.
Do you play, Mrs. Ebner?
Oh, well, just a little.
I was wondering...
Would you like me to play Joseph's composition? Oh, here. It's pretty, isn't it, Mr. Dexter?
Yes.
But it's not finished. Well, I'm sure he'll finish it when he gets home.
I imagine he will.
I don't even know what he calls it.
There's something in pencil scratched across the top of this page. Hildy. Funny title.
Well, maybe it's a name. Somebody he knows, he likes. Who knows? I wouldn't ask him, Mr. Dexter. He's sensitive about his music. My husband is a sensitive musician.
Mrs. Ebner, may I borrow these sheets of music?
Are you a musician?
No. I just thought maybe I might get a lead on something.
Mr. Dexter, if the music should lead you to my husband, tell him that his wife and his children are waiting for him. We'll be here. Nothing will be different. It'll be just like it always was. If the music leads you to him, please tell him that.
I will, Mrs. Ebner. I promise you, I will. I found out that the night of Joseph Ebner's strange disappearance, Maestro Carlo Fanello had conducted the Los Angeles Symphony Orchestra. The following afternoon, I tried to get in to see Fanello, but he was in rehearsal for a concert he was giving that evening. Later that night, I managed to corner his personal manager, Nicky Benson, at the Civic Auditorium.
I don't know, Mr. Dexter. All depends on his mood. These orchestra conductors are moody people, especially before a concert.
Did you tell him who I was?
Yes, I told him who you were and what you wanted, but I'm sure you understand.
Of course.
Joseph was his friend. He loved him very much. The maestro himself chose Joseph as the concertmaster.
I see.
Or, excuse me.
Maestro?
Yeah, ¿qué cosa?
Maestro, this is the man I told you about.
Oh, yes. Come in, please.
Come in.
You sit?
He would like you to sit, if you please.
Thanks.
Now, you talk. You say.
As I said, I told him who you are and why you're here.
Maestro Finello, I understand you and Joseph Ebner were very good friends.
More than friends, Signor Dexter. More than friends, yes. You like wine?
Oh, no, thank you. I don't care for any.
Well, you excuse?
Go right ahead.
You want to find Joseph?
Yes, I do.
He was perhaps a good friend of yours?
No.
Then why? 4 years ago he disappeared. Long time.
I'm a writer. I want to write a story about his disappearance.
Oh.
That night that Joseph disappeared, back in 48, let's go back to that night, Maestro. Did he talk to you when he arrived here at the auditorium?
No, we did not talk.
But you saw him?
Yes, when I arrived, Joseph was in the musician's room. I passed through. They all say, "Good evening, maestro." I say, "Good evening."
That was when you saw him?
Yes.
I read the testimonies of the musicians he'd spoken to that evening. It was just idle conversation, nothing of importance.
The police have asked me these very same questions. I told them exactly what I have tell you.
I understand he did some composing.
Yes, a little. He has talent to compose music. Many times I have encouraged him. Many times he has come to the maestro for advice.
Did he ever speak to you about this piece of music, Maestro?
No. This I do not recognize. It's not finished.
I know.
It's good.
I think he calls it Hildy.
Hildy? It's strange. No, this I do not recognize. Joseph did not discuss this music with me. He wrote this?
His wife gave it to me.
Martha? Yes, dear Martha. Wonderful woman. A good wife. It's too bad.
Too bad?
You are one man. In 4 years, many men have tried to find Joseph. They have not found him. No one will find him. No, I'm afraid, Signor Dexter. Very much afraid. Now, you will excuse me, please.
Of course. This way, Mr. Dexter. And thank you very much, Maestro Finello.
But you will not find him.
The following day, I went back to the Civic Auditorium. I went through the entire place all by myself, examining every exit, talking with people who knew something about the case. Then I had a bit of luck. I was introduced to a stage doorman, the same stage doorman who had been on the door the night that Joseph Ebner had disappeared.
Well, I'm just about run out of answers on this Ebner business.
I know you've probably been questioned about this thing hundreds of times.
Thousands of times. Thousands.
I went over the entire auditorium.
And you discovered that there's only one exit backstage that he could have left by. All the others was locked.
Yes, but what about the front of the auditorium where the audience was sitting?
Couldn't have left that way. Couldn't have gotten out there. Somebody'd seen him.
You're positive that Ebner didn't pass you going out the back door?
If he'd gone out that door, I'd have seen him.
It's impossible. He must have left by some exit. A person just doesn't disappear into thin air.
That's the odd part about this whole thing, Mr. Dexter. Ebner left the green room. Now, some of the musicians saw him leave. He said he was going to his locker.
Did he get to his locker?
Nobody knows.
But it's impossible that a man...
Yes, Mr. Dexter, that's what everybody said at the time. The police, the newspapers, everybody. They said it's impossible. Don't happen. A man just disappearing like that. But it did happen, Mr. Dexter. It really did. It happened just like that.
I felt pretty discouraged, and I thought about what Maestro Finello had said. A lot of men, experts, some of them, had tried to find the answer, and they couldn't. How could I expect to find anything that would have led me to Joseph Ebner? I still had his unfinished piece of music, but that looked like a blind spot, too. I was back up in the office. It was about 8:30. I was sitting there when the phone rang. Hello?
Mr. Dexter?
Yeah?
Mr.
Mr. Dexter, this is Nicky Benson.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's important, or maybe it's not. I don't know, but still it's strange.
What are you talking about?
Well, Eric Richter just showed up in the musicians' lounge.
Eric Richter?
Yes.
Well, who's Eric Richter?
He was one of Joseph Ebner's closest friends.
What's so strange about his showing up?
Well, this is the first time anyone has seen Richter in 4 years, Mr. Dexter. Because he disappeared the same night that Joseph Ebner did.
Autolite is bringing you Mr. MacDonald Carey in The Missing Person, tonight's production in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Say, Harlow, what's the best way to save gas?
Why, that's easy, Hap. Walk. But if you want to drive and save gas, make sure your spark plugs are functioning properly.
And if they're not, Harlow?
Well, Hap, if they're worn out, get them replaced with a set of ignition-engineered Autolite spark plugs. Like, for example, the Autolite resistor type.
Why the resistor type, Harlow?
The Autolite resistor spark plug is one of the greatest advancements in spark plugs for automotive use in the past 20 years. It gives smoother performance and gas savings. And that's mighty important right now.
It's the Autolite resistor for me, Harlow.
Good, Hap. And it's only one of a complete line of ignition-engineered Autolite spark plugs designed for every use. So, friends, have your Autolite spark plug dealer check your spark plugs this week. And remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
And now, Autolite brings back to our Hollywood soundstage Mr. MacDonald Carey in Elliot Lewis's production of The Missing Person, a true story well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Mr. Benson? Where's Richter?
He left when the concert started.
Oh. Well, tell me about him. Is he a musician?
Yes. Well, that is, he was a musician. At one time, Eric used to play the violin with the orchestra, but he had some kind of a stroke some years ago. Paralyzed his hands. He used to come around a lot, see Joseph, and talk to his friends in the orchestra.
The night that Ebner disappeared, had this Richter come around?
Oh, yes, he was here. I was in the musicians' lounge for a little while that night. I don't know if anybody else saw it or not. I saw it. Eric came in and stood at the door for a long time. Then I saw Joseph go over to him and talk to him for a couple of minutes. Then Joseph went back to where he was standing with some other musicians.
I went through the police files and I don't remember.
Yeah, I know. I didn't say anything to the police at the time. I didn't think it was important.
But tonight, when
I saw him for the first time since the night that Joseph disappeared, then I thought to myself it was important.
It was important the night that Ebner disappeared, Mr. Benson. You should have told the police then. It may have been very important. Benson gave me Richter's last known address. It was a cheap hotel on 3rd Street. I went there. The unshaven landlord told me that Eric Richter was in. I told Richter who I was and what I wanted to know.
Please, sit down, Mr. Dexter.
Thanks.
Sorry, I have nothing to offer you. If I'd known I was to have a guest, I should.
Oh, that's quite all right.
You understand my situation, I'm sure. See, I haven't worked in...
Mr. Richter, I want to ask you some questions.
About Joseph. Joseph Ebner. Yes, dear Joseph. He's not dead, you know. I believe as you do, Mr. Dexter.
You disappeared the same night that Joseph Ebner disappeared, Mr. Richter. What happened to you?
I disappeared? This is news to me. I disappeared.
Nicky Benson told me that you used to go to the auditorium quite a bit to talk to your friends in the orchestra, but that after Ebner disappeared, you just went...
Oh, you speak and accuse as if I had committed some crime, Mr. Dexter. For 4 years, I have not chosen to see my friends. I have not seen them. That's all.
I see. Mr. Richter, when Ebner disappeared 4 years ago, he was composing a piece of music. I don't know what it was. His wife, Martha, doesn't know either. Nobody seems to know. Maybe you do. Here, look at it.
Oh, you will have to hold it for me, Mr. Dexter.
Yeah.
Hildy.
You know?
I...
What is it?
Mr. Dexter,
Do you know what it is?
No, it's nothing. It's just...
Is Hildy a name?
Look, Mr. Dexter, I don't know anything that will lead you to Joseph Ebner. Besides, there has been enough suffering for his wife. Why should there be more suffering?
Suffering? What do you mean, suffering?
Don't ask me to tell you. It isn't right for me to tell you.
Tell me, Richter, please.
Hildy, Mr. Dexter, is a woman.
A woman? Who is she?
She's a woman who was more than a friend to Joseph.
Oh, I see.
No, you don't see at all.
Where is this Hildy?
I don't know. I haven't seen her in a long time.
Is Ebner with her now?
I don't know.
Ebner said something to you that night in 1948 back in the auditorium. What was it?
He told me he had found an answer to his problem.
And that was the last you saw of him?
Yes. I never saw him after that.
And Hildy?
I never saw Hildy again.
Eric Richter gave me the last known address of the woman named Hildy. In 4 years, a lot of things happened. I was almost afraid to begin my search for her, afraid of what I might find. But it was my story. I had to follow it up. I went to the address that Richter had given me.
Yes?
Excuse me, I was looking for someone. This was the last known address of this party. Perhaps you might be able to help me trace her down.
How long ago?
Well, she lived here 4 years ago.
Well, that's a long time. A lot of people moved in and out since then. You remember her name?
Her name was Hildy.
Hildy?
Yes. Do you remember?
Yeah, she still lives here.
You mean she still?
Well, what's so strange about that? Got a lot of people in the building who've lived
Does
here.
she live alone?
Apartment 207.
Do you know if she's in now?
And you can use those stairs over there.
Thanks.
Yes?
Is your name Hildy? Dexter. Phil Dexter. I'm a writer with the magazine The Real Story.
Yes?
I'm looking for Joseph Ebner.
Won't you come in, Mr. Dexter? Sit down.
Thank you.
How did you find me?
Eric Richter.
I see. And now you want to ask me a lot of questions.
I'm not a reporter. I'm writing an article for a magazine.
Still, there'll be questions.
Yes.
First, you'll want to know if I know where Joseph is. No, I don't know, Mr. Dexter. If I knew, I'd tell you.
Why would you tell me?
No man possessed of his talent has the right to deny it to others.
I see.
Then next you'll want to know...
No, that's not necessary.
Let me tell you how we first met. It was at a party. We were introduced. At first it was just a casual acquaintance. Then Joseph invited me to a concert. He told me of his family, his love for children.
Why are you telling me all this?
Because I want you to understand that we never did anything to be ashamed of. Our relationship was a thing of music. Music is what drew us together.
When was the last time you saw Joseph?
3 nights before he disappeared.
Why didn't you go to the police? Tell them what you knew?
No, there was nothing I knew that would have helped the police. Joseph's wife loved him. Why should it have been necessary for her to suffer any more? Then there were the children.
I don't understand.
Don't you see, Mr. Dexter? The others wouldn't have understood a relationship like ours.
I've got something here I'd like to show you.
What is it?
You knew, of course, that Ebner did some composing.
He had many talents. Yes, I know.
Did you know that he'd been composing this?
No, I didn't. Very beautiful.
He named it Hildy.
I can see.
It was for you.
Please.
Where is Joseph Ebner, Hildy? Where is he?
Mr. Dexter, I told you I don't know. If I did know, I'd tell you. I don't know where Joseph is. I miss him.
I see.
Just to see him. Nothing more. Just to know that he's all right is enough. It fills a loneliness.
I understand. Thank you, Hildy. I've tracked down the last hopeful bit of information that might have led me to Joseph Ebner. It still leads into a blind alley. Joseph Ebner may never be found now, but he's out there. Somewhere at this very moment, he may be listening to the sound of my voice. If any one of you who are listening should ever hear this piece of music being played, get in touch with your local authorities, because you will have found Joseph Ebner. Suspense. A true story presented by Autolite. Tonight's star, Mr. MacDonald Carey.
This is Harlow Wilcox speaking for Autolite, world's largest independent manufacturer of automotive electrical equipment. Autolite is proud to serve the greatest names in the industry. They are members of the Autolite family, as well as are the 98,000 Autolite distributors and dealers in the United States and thousands more in Canada and throughout the world. Our family also includes the nearly 30,000 men and women in 28 great Autolite plants from coast to coast and in still other Autolite plants in many foreign countries, as well as the 18,000 people who have invested a portion of their savings in Autolite. Every Autolite product is backed by constant research and precision built to the highest standards of quality and performance. So remember, from bumper to tail light, you're always right with Autolite.
Next week, a story about courage. The terrifying, normal operational flight of a bomber and her crew. A dramatization of The Flight of the Bumblebee, starring Mr. Fred McMurray. The story will be heard on Suspense. Suspense is produced and directed by Elliott Lewis, with music composed by Lucian Morowick and conducted by Lud Gluskin. The Missing Person was written for Suspense by Richard George Pedicini. Featured in tonight's cast were Irene Tedrow, Joseph Kearns, Jay Novello, Herb Vigran, Paula Winslow, and Jim Nusser.
MacDonald Carey may soon be seen in the 20th Century Fox picture, My Wife's Best Friend.
And remember, next week on Suspense, Mr. Fred McMurray in The Flight of the Bumblebee.
You can buy Autolite Standard Type or Resistor Type spark plugs, the Autolite Stay Full battery, Autolite electrical parts at your neighborhood Autolite dealers. Switch to Autolite. Good night.
This is the CBS Radio Network.
Mutual presents Arch Oboler's Plays. The Mutual Broadcasting System has the pleasure of presenting the 13th broadcast of a special 26-week series of plays by radio playwright Arch Oboler. In this series, we hope to bring you dramas full of the excitement and the meaning of plays told in relation to the expanding world we live in. Arch Oboler has something to tell you about tonight's play.
Last week, we told you tonight would bring you a comedy about the big shots, the holy moguls of our world. Well, that play just isn't right. Instead, here, and with much pleasure in the bringing, is that fine character actor, Morris Karnowski, in a play about Dr. Bluff.
Alone in the room, talking to himself out loud, he's crazy. All right, I'm crazy. No, I can't keep on talking like this. But I must. Just thinking things in your head isn't enough. You've got to talk them, put them into words, hear them in your ears. How could so much happen in these 2 hours? Yes, it's only 2 hours, 12 o'clock, and it started at 10. Now it's 12, a minute 2. No, 12. Exactly 2 hours. So much in 2 hours. Well, it's better to talk out loud. Talk out the 2 hours. How was it? At 10, I came into my office. Private door. Miss Cooper said...
Good morning, Doctor.
Just as always? Good morning, Doctor. Just as always. The reception room filled. Everything's fine. In my private office, chrome, tile, and walnut furniture. $5,000 cash it cost me.
The doctor's office in Canton, Dr. Dayton. The finest doctor's office is in all America.
I sat down in my office. I remember I buzzed Miss Cooper.
Yes, Dr. Dayton?
I said, and what little gems of fitness have we today, Miss Cooper?
Quite a full morning, Doctor. Mrs. Miss Warren, Mrs. S.J. Lawrence, the utility Lawrences. Two brand new cases, including that Catherine Fuller Mrs. Pointer phoned about. Oh, yes, and Mildred Gregg. You told her to come back in 2 weeks. And
but I'm talking about this patient, that patient. All at once, I heard another voice in the room. There was only Miss Cooper, and yet I heard another voice.
You're looking smug as usual, Dr. Bluff.
Miss Cooper!
How is it, Doctor?
Yes. You said something?
Why, yes, of course. Telling you about the patient.
You said something else. You did?
No, Doctor.
I heard.
Telling you about the patient.
I heard you.
Really, I didn't say anything. I talked about
the protested so vigorously, convincing me. Let her go. Hearing things, that's what I thought. Good morning, Dr. Bluff. I heard it so clearly. Well, no magic. The first patient.
Dr. Drayton, dear Dr. Drayton, you must have me listen to my heart is palpitating again. I know it. Definite palpitations. I hear them. I feel them.
Infernal woman talking. And while she was talking, suddenly I heard so clearly.
I'm drinking too much. You drink, Dr. Drayton? No, it's the cash you want, not drink. Well, you don't get cash from me. A check, and that's no good until Joe comes through with that alimony. Maybe I won't pay you at all. Then it's for a trip. Need a trip. Mean man.
Jump to my feet. Slam the desk.
What is it, Dr. Drayton?
No one in the room but you.
Well, the doctor wasn't aware of wrong.
I heard you. Yes, while you were talking.
Doctor, what on earth is this?
No one here but you and I. No one.
Oh, Doctor, my heart. You tried
No. I heard it most distinctly. While she'd been talking, another voice talking. Her voice. No, not quite like her voice, and yet her voice. I got rid of her somehow. The next patient?
Yes, I'm back, Doctor. After that atrocious thing you sent me, I couldn't come back, but here I am. You may examine me.
Mrs. Smith Warren, old crow, sickness of living too long. Started to examine. And then I heard.
No good.
Again another voice.
No good for me.
Old woman sitting there, not talking, and yet I heard.
Just a younger, Doctor.
Her lips weren't moving.
Don't like your hands.
What I was hearing.
Old hands like mine.
As if.
Strange, brown spotted.
What was in her mind?
A younger man.
What she was thinking.
A younger man to make me forget.
What she was thinking. That was it. That voice, the thoughts in her mind. That was it. The other voices, thoughts in the minds of the others. That's what I heard. But it was incredible. Impossible. The thoughts in the mind of another? Was I losing my mind? I remember I called the nurse back. She came into the room. As she came closer to the desk, I heard.
All right. What's the trouble now, Dr. Bluff?
She hadn't said a word, and yet I heard.
What's the trouble now, Dr. Bluff?
I said, Cooper, did you think?
Why, no, Doctor. Been hitting the bottle again, Dr. Bluff?
Stop whispering.
I haven't said anything. I haven't said anything.
It was true. It was true. She hadn't spoken. I knew it. I knew it. But I said, don't you lie to me. I heard you.
You're drunk, little man. You are drunk.
How dare you? I'm not drunk. How dare you say that? And I said, not drunk. Her face went white as if the blood in her head turned to water. Her mouth open. She didn't say anything. And yet I heard.
How did you know?
I kept on hearing.
I didn't speak. I didn't. He knows what I saw. He knows that I hit Dr. Bluff.
What? What?
Doctor.
I heard you.
Dr.
Bluff, all right.
No, I didn't.
You're fired. Fired. Had I heard her thought? Had I? Or was it my own brain? Tired. An awful hallucination. I had to find out. I opened the door of the reception room. I listened. Yes. Women chattering. Normal enough. Then, above their voices, lifting above it so clearly in my ears. Other voices. Yes, their voices. Yes, true. The thoughts in their minds rushed into the room.
Oh, Doctor. Dr. Drake, dear Doctor. Am I next? Dear Dr. Drake. I've been so impatient, Doctor.
The other things I was hearing.
That little man. That little man. To come here. How long did it go? Well, you know why I'm How long did it go? How long?
The voices in my head. I said, no! Get out here! I sat in my office, alone. All of them gone. I just sat. Madness. I just sat in my office, afraid to think. Madness. Horrible word, frightening word. Even to think of it. But it wasn't true. It wasn't. Yes, my mind was strangely sensitized to what people thought. Why not? Why not? Reason it out, talk it out. Yes, if I could tell someone, explain. Fred. Yes, Fred Kendall. Good old Fred. I called him. Yes, good old Fred. Hello? Is Dr. Kendall in? Yes, I want to talk to him. Dr. Drayton, hurry. Hello? Fred? This is Emily Drayton. Listen, Fred, come over right away. It's of the utmost importance. Yes, of the utmost importance. Good old Fred, best friend Fred, a good doctor, didn't make much money, not in my class, but a good man, sensible, understanding. Well, Emily, what is it? Nothing too important, I hope. A drink, Fred?
I have a number of calls to make, Emily. Would you mind telling me just
Yes, of course, Fred. I suppose I should preface it all with this. At school, ever since, I've always had a great deal of respect for you. If I haven't been able to do anything materially, it's only been through force of circumstances. All right, Dr. Bluff. You said nothing? You said nothing? Dr. Bluff, what are you selling? No, don't say that. What? What's the matter with you, Emily? I thought... Listen to me, Fred. Do you think it's possible for a man, to say, well, I have a patient. He believes he can hear the thoughts of people around him. Say what you're up to, Dr. Bluff. Dr. Bluff. I heard him think it again, the same words the nurse. I said, Fred, are you listening to me? Why, of course I am. What are you so excited about, Dr. Bluff? Dr. Bluff, Dr. Bluff, Dr. Bluff. Would he stop saying it? And why was he saying it? No, I'd ignore the thought in his mind. Keep on talking, get his opinion. It wasn't madness. It wasn't. I had to know.
Now, look here, Emery. This is my busy morning. I'm an unimportant practitioner, I know, but believe me, people are ill in my borough.
I'm trying to tell you. This patient, as I was saying, thinks he hears voices. That is, the thoughts of people around him.
You're even more stupid than I thought, Dr. Bluff. Don't you even know paranoia when you see it?
Paranoia? I heard him say it. No, it wasn't true. Not madness. I was hearing his thoughts. Plainly, and I was hearing his thoughts.
Aloud, he said, look, why, consult me on this, Emery. I'm none of your gilt-edged psychiatrist. Come to the point. Why did you send for me? Well, look up, Dr. Bluff. What's up your dirty sleeve? What?
He waited for me to speak. I began thinking that if I kept talking about it, this patient hearing things in his head, he'd begin to suspect me. He'd think I was crazy. He'd go out and tell people that... No.
You are clever, aren't you, Fred? Yes. I had a rational reason for sending for you. Yes, indeed. I've neglected you, Fred. I want you to help me on an obstruction case. A good 50, Fred. I'll see that you get that.
And all the time I kept talking to him, I could hear him thinking,
Dr. Bluff, dear obnoxious, facile Dr. Bluff, you're in a jam. I know it. You want my help. Do you ever cure anything worse than a case of sniffles without help, Dr. Bluff?
I could hear him. I could hear him.
Dr. Bluff. How much last year? 40, $50,000. I made 10, you made 50. If you're a pimple yet, Dr. Bluff, housemaid to me, how soon do you start telling me how wonderful you are, Dr. Bluff?
I began to realize he was making fun of me and his thoughts. But it couldn't be true. Nothing. Red. He respected me.
Dr. Bluff.
No, that name. Why should Miss Cooper, why should they call me that name?
Dr. Emery Seed Racing.
Respected.
The respected Dr. Emery Seed Racing.
Always respected.
Office, Park Avenue.
Yes, indeed. Best in the city.
Waiting list of patients.
Of course. Always respected.
Bank balance $53,359.42.
$53,359.42. Yes. All that money, patients paid the money because they respected me. Yes, facts were facts.
Dr. Bluff.
Frederick thinking that. Jealous of me. The man was jealous of my success. Telephone rang as I was sitting there.
Medical Association meeting at noon, Doctor. Just a reminder.
Medical meeting at noon? Oh, yes, I'd go there. All my colleagues, pleasant, charming. Fred Kendall, he'd upset me. His petty jealousy upset me. I'd go to the meeting. Calm down, I thought. Poor, unsuccessful Fred with his grubby little orders and his grubby little patients. Let him be jealous. I had what I had. Money, position, respect. Poor, jealous Fred. Laughing at him, I almost forgot about the thoughts. I forgot until I went out of the office into the elevator.
Going down, Doc?
Went into the elevator. Only passenger.
How's larceny, fathead?
I wasn't sure that I heard.
Say your hot stuff and ingrown toenails, Doc. $25 a crack.
Shut up! How dare you! He didn't know what I was yelling about. He thought I'd gone crazy. The street. My car at the curb. Chauffeur. My face must have shown my excitement. Chauffeur said,
Is there something wrong, Doc?
Mind your own business. Medical car. Yes, sir. In the auto, riding down, so confused, everything so confused. How dare they think of me that way? How dare they, Cooper, Fred, those women that'll fool in the elevator, none of my ability, importance. How dare they talk like that? As we drove along, I realized I wasn't hearing thoughts. The hallucination over. I was free. I felt fine. What I'd been enduring. All right, forget it, I told myself. Don't think about it. Got to the medical club. Late. Hurried into the room where the meeting was to be held. Room full of men. My colleagues. Oh, fine men, substantial men, best practices. It's good to see them. Dr. Strauss and Dr. Ellingson and Dr. Edwards and Dr. Chester. Oh, all of the best men in town. No petty jealousies there. Upper bracket men, fine men. I went in, empty chair, Mr. Strauss. Good man, practice worth 30,000 a year, was worth a cent. I said, "Oh, Strauss!" He looked up at me, small, glistening, clever eyes of man looking at me. I said, "Mind if I keep my carriage next to you?" And then, something in my head. I heard. "So can I help myself, Dr. Bluff?" Dr. Bluff, I was hearing. It was happening again, hearing talk. "So are you standing there with your mouth open like a goldfish? Sit down, Dr. Bluff." Dr. Bluff, Scout 2, started me. Aloud, he said, "Well, it isn't the illustrious Dr. Drayton. Don't stand there. Sit down, Drayton. You're too late to eat, but not late enough for the speakers." I couldn't speak. I sat down, looked around me, could hear the murmur of their voices, and above their voices, that other sound. The thought from them. Someone down the table called, "Greetings, Brother Drayton." Dr. Bartman, good man, fine practice. "How does that gentleman come to lecture me go, Drayton?" I heard my voice say, "Fine, fine." Then I heard, "Did you use a hacksaw, Dr. Bluff?" "Who held your hand while you did it, Dr. Bluff?" "Sure it was the tonsil you took out, Dr. Bluff?" "Sure it wasn't the thyroid or the liver?" "No. They couldn't be thinking like that of me. Not these men." "Oh, did your nurse operate for you?" "You're going to write a book about it, Bluff, eh?" "We're now the funeral services, Dr. Bluff. Is it true you split ears with your butcher?" "It's true. They were thinking that of me." And they stopped. The chairman, the speaker of the day.
"And so, gentlemen, I ask your attention for a few well-chosen words from our distinguished guest, the head of the Family Research Hospital, Dr. Franz Jennings. Dr. Jennings."
Jennings, great man. Got up, caught my eye, smiled. I hardly heard him begin. In my head, what the others had been thinking. It couldn't be true.
Thank you. Gentlemen, this is the first time that I have addressed your luncheon club because, frankly, the medical profession, like most professions, is afflicted with too much talk and too little action. Too many medical men talk research, too few practice it. The result, as far as original work in the science of medicine is concerned, is that the sum total of research in this city is smaller than the meat course you just served me for lunch. You men represent the elite of the medical profession in this community. The elite, presumably intellectually as well as, unfortunately, from a financial standpoint. I coupled the word financial with unfortunately because most of you, as soon as you started making money, substituted golf clubs for scalpels and tennis rackets for test tubes. To a few of you, therefore, I say, and those few know who they are, I say, spend a little time in between collecting fees and research. It may not pay off in duplex apartments, but believe me, you'll find satisfactions beyond price. Others of you here, well, I'm very happy for all of us that you do stay away from the laboratories. You are doctors the way a man is a salesman or a broker or a truck driver. So much time spent for so much money. You give a service and you're paid. That is all. And that is all right.
Then he looked down the long table at me.
Others of you, you shouldn't have bothered becoming doctors. Floor walkers, yes. Managers of ladies' dress shops, yes. But not doctors.
He's talking about Dr. Bluff. I've heard someone think that.
There's a place in the medical profession for both the idealist and for the materialist, but not for the incompetent fool. The thought-tuber does not diagnose properly, nor does he cure. Yet Hippocrates in all his glory never was more sanctimoniously self-important.
Oh, Dr. Bluff, so help me. Another one at the table thinking that.
They squeeze through a medical education by the grace of God, a glib-tongue and soft-hearted examiners. They build up a practice by politics, charming manners, and a colossal ability to bluff.
Dr. Bluff.
Eventually, success. An interior decorated office on the best avenue, a streamlined office girl, and a vacuum mind. I tell you, gentlemen, I'm Dr. Bluff.
Look at Bluff.
It's Dr. Bluff. Tell you about him, Dr. Bluff.
You hear them laughing at me. No, they couldn't. Laughing at me. Their faces so serious, listening to the speaker, but in their minds laughing at me, all of them. At me, Emily Drayton. I could hear the sound of it in my ears, scaring me. They couldn't be doing this to me. I forgot to look at them. Why should they laugh? Stop laughing. Why did they stop? I couldn't endure it. I couldn't. Stop! You! Stop it right! Stop! Stop! Stop out of there. Stay away from me. Stay away. Stay away. Stay away back in there. All right. It's true. It is true. I was losing $175 suit, fat face, fine office, but I was nothing. All my life, nothing. Only you enough to make money with Bluff. Dr. Bluff. All right, I was Bluff. All right. So I came here. Home. Dr. Bluff had this place. A wife. So I came home. Home. Traffic. I had to see traffic. She was coming down the stairs, dressed to go out. She looked down at me, her face filled with surprise. I looked up at her, my wife. Wanted to speak. Couldn't. So young. So lovely. She came close. I heard.
You're home early. You look sick. I'm sick of you. Sick. Maybe you'll die.
She was thinking that. Kathy thinking that. Maybe you'll die. Maybe you'll die. Maybe you'll die. Maybe You're crying, Dr. Bluff. Pretty late to cry. Pretty late even to talk to yourself. Why should she love you? That's a bluff. A bluff at work. A bluff at love. Bluff. What a horrible thing for a man to hear what people think of her.
Poor Daddy.
Who said that? Who? Who's out there in the hall? Who's out there?
I'm sorry, Doctor. Just taking the baby out for a walk. Excuse me.
No, wait. I heard her.
Oh, no, Doctor, believe me. She didn't make a sound. She's such a good child.
Let go of her car, of her hand. I want her.
But Doctor, you never...
Give me my card, I tell you.
But Doctor, you never... She's afraid of you. I mean...
Go on, go!
She's afraid of you.
Ruth, give me your hand. You're not afraid of your father.
No.
That's a good girl. Come in here. Your father wants to talk to you.
All right.
Will you sit down?
Listen up, please.
All right. Not very large, are you? How old are you? 3, 4? Sorry, I've forgotten.
I'm 5 years old.
I haven't seen you very often. Been too busy. Why do you look at me like that? What are you thinking?
Poor Daddy.
You said that aloud this time. What you're thinking, I can't hear it. I can't hear it anymore.
Please don't frighten me, Daddy.
No, I don't want to frighten you. It's gone. Gone again. And for good. I can't hear what people think. I know now. I won't ever hear.
Please, Daddy.
No, I won't frighten you. Believe me.
Poor Daddy.
Why do you say it?
Daddy, I'm tired.
Yes, I am tired. I am. It's been such a strange day.
Poor Daddy.
You like me?
I like you very much.
Why?
I don't like you. My Daddy. My bird, Daddy. My pretty bird.
Yes, it is a pretty book. The story of the happy king.
And the first picture, Daddy.
Yes. Once upon a time, long ago, there lived a king, a very happy king, who had horses and boats and everything in the world.
Daddy? Daddy?
What?
Did he have everything in the world? Everything?
That's what the book says.
But if he had everything, what have you got, Daddy?
I've got $53,439 and...
Daddy, what did you say?
I mean, I've got...
You what? You can have it.
I've got a book of fairy stories.
No.
A book of fairy stories. And you... just heard Dr. Bluff, a play by Art Oboler. The leading role taken by Mr. Morris Carnacki. Included in the cast in the order of their appearance were Olive Jane, Mary Jane Cross, Dorothy Scott, Barbara Eiler, Gloria Blondell, Lorraine Tuttle, Everett Allen, Bruce Elliott, Bill Christie, and Theodore Von Elf, Earl Ross, and Norman Wilson. The music was composed and conducted by Jack Meakin. Next week, a new play written especially for radio. This will be the 14th of a special series of plays, written, produced, and directed for the Future Broadcasting System by Art Oboler. To conclude the program, Jack Meakin conducts the orchestra in excerpts from his original composition, Memoir. Broadcasting System.
And now, stay tuned for the program that is rated tops in popularity for a longer period of time than any other West Coast program in radio history. The Signal Oil program, The Whistler, transcribed by the Signal Oil Company to enable the entire production staff of The Whistler to spend the New Year's weekend at home with their families. Signal, the famous Go Farther gasoline, invites you to sit back and enjoy another strange story by The Whistler.
I am The Whistler, and I know many things, for I walk by night.
I know many strange tales hidden in the hearts of men and women who have stepped into the shadows. Yes, I know the nameless terrors of which they dare not speak.
And now for the Signal Oil Company, the Whistler's strange story. Fatal Step.
It was a clear night, a high moon bathing the giant concrete columns and sweeping approaches to an unfinished stretch of bridge in the outskirts of the city. The area was seemingly deserted, all traffic being routed around it until the end of construction. But there was some movement, some life. A man alone, walking along one of the approaches, high up over the street below. And unknown to him, another man, Carl Fabian, higher up, drawn back in the shadows of a support column, watching, waiting, expectantly. And then, as the two figures converge, Carl Fabian steps out.
Good evening, Mr. Evans.
Who is it?
The name is Fabian. Carl Fabian.
Oh, Mr. Fabian. What do you want?
I'm just a little curious, that's all.
Curious?
Yes, about you. Your plans. You enjoying this job here? As foreman, I mean?
I'm getting along.
Didn't I see something in the paper about the Crime Commission asking you questions about the Latimer Construction Company?
I'm not supposed to discuss that with anybody, Mr. Fabian.
Not even with me, the real head of Latimer Construction? Look, Evans, there are other jobs, better paying. You think you might be interested?
You're offering me a better job?
Maybe, if you've no objection to traveling.
I like it here in town.
There might be a sizable cash bonus, Evans. In fact, I'm quite sure it could be arranged.
I'm not interested.
Well, you should be. I might say you better be, Evans.
Huh?
It's important to me that you leave this job and get out of town. I'm offering you money and a job. Well?
For your information, Mr. Fabian, I intend to report this entire conversation when I'm called in by the Crime Commission.
Really? And what makes you think you'll ever be called again, Mr. Evans? What makes you think you'll be able to answer their questions?
Now, get away from me. I haven't done anything.
So you like it here, eh? Well, that's fine, because you're going to be here a long time.
He went over the railing, didn't he, Carl? The simple, clean-cut way to be rid of the talkative Mr. Harry Evans. It's the way matters like this were attended to in some of your less legitimate enterprises, where you got your start, before you moved in on construction work. But now you know that you must get down there, Carl, 50 feet below. Make certain that Evans is dead. At the end of the ramp, you catch sight of him. Freeze in your tracks as you see something else. A lantern. The night watchman, Carl, and coming your way. You leap back into the protection of the tool shed, crouch against its dark shadows. The watchman calls out to someone.
Grady, get over here. Something's happened.
What is it, Mac? Who is it, Mac? What happened to the guy?
He went over the rail. Still alive, I think. You better go for the ambulance.
Oh, gosh, the poor devil.
Hurry, Mac, the ambulance. Maybe there's a chance.
Yeah, I'll hurry. He's alive, isn't he, Carl? Alive. Harry Evans, the conscientious foreman that your partner and front man, Joe Latimer, had hired. The foreman so conscientious he made a habit of visiting the job every night. It was this nightly habit that decided you to pay him this unexpected visit. And now he's still alive, and there's nothing you can do about it. Not now. Now you can only think of escape, but even that seems impossible, doesn't it? And then finally, the wail of an ambulance siren. And soon the attendants joined the night watchman employed by the Latimer Construction Company, and the man he called Mac.
No use. He's done for. Accident, huh?
Yeah, that's what it was.
You say he's foreman on the job?
That's right. Harry Evans. He was in the habit of stopping by here at night, looking things over.
I see. If you two don't mind answering a few questions?
Oh, certainly not. No, not at all.
Your name?
Wagner.
Address?
4420 East Ellis Avenue.
It was terribly close, wasn't it, Carl? The watchman reaching Harry Evans before he died. You weren't even sure that he hadn't found out something, but you're sure you're in the clear. His report to the ambulance attendant was simple and complete. Accidental death, they'll call it. And you're sure you're rid of Harry Evans. Rid of him forever. The following evening, your mind is on more pleasant things. The occasion, a smart supper party. And a girl named Leona to help put you in a pleasant frame of mind. The attractive niece of Judge Victor Mayfield. And you seem to be practically the only man she cares to dance with. You've come a long way in the past few years, haven't you, Carl? Many people think of you as a legitimate businessman. But despite your responsible front, at heart you're still the same racketeer you've always been. Aren't you, Carl?
Well, Carl, you seem to be enjoying yourself after all.
I didn't say I wouldn't, Leona. I thought I was surprised that the judge put in an appearance.
So was he.
Oh?
I'm used to having my own way. Perhaps it's best that you know that.
And I'm part of your plans?
Why not? An eligible bachelor? Perhaps one of the most sought after?
Oh.
Carl Fabian, 40-ish, single, tall, rugged, handsome.
Sounds like a description from a Western novel.
Oh, let me finish. Head of Fabian Enterprises, a real political force in our fair city.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I do. The judge does. We also know you're the brains and money behind the Latimer Construction Company.
What about it?
Nothing. Except that it's a distinction to be part of the city's great expansion, growth.
Yeah, it is.
Well, don't sound so somber.
Oh, sorry. Oh, the music stopped.
Sorry about that, too.
Yeah, I really am.
Come on, meet my uncle. Who knows? Someday you might get a parking ticket.
And if the judge could do me any good, what could I do for him?
You could at least be pleasant. Maybe even help him remodel his home. Isn't that what some of you big contractors try to do? Little favors for influential men?
Leona, you're quite a girl.
Oh, I'm on good behavior tonight. Besides...
Yes?
You're quite a boy.
Well, Carl, everything is perfect, isn't it? It seems you're on top of the world. And the following day, after the supper party, even the nervousness of your partner, Joe Latimer, supposed head of the Latimer Construction Company, fails to dim your optimistic outlook. Joe, on the other hand, is very upset as you talk in the privacy of your penthouse apartment.
Take it easy, Joe. I tell you, everything's going to be all right.
I hope you're right.
Have you heard anything to the contrary?
No, but, Carl, I've been meaning to speak to you. We're riding too high. It's dangerous.
But fun, Joe, fun.
I'm not so sure. I don't sleep so good lately.
Joe, you'd better take a little brandy in your coffee. You're shaking.
No, I'm okay.
Well, good. Because you see, Joe, if you're getting any ideas about pulling out... remember, this Evans thing doesn't stand all by itself. Let's remember how we built the Latimer Construction Company. How we'll go on building.
Oh, no, Carl. I have no intention of changing anything.
Good boy.
I just want you to reassure me, that's all, that we'll have no trouble, that nobody suspects anything about Harry Evans.
Nobody does, Joe. There's no way, believe me. It's simple. Harry Evans was about to talk to the wrong people, the Crime Commission. You and I knew he would have said the wrong thing.
Yes.
I know you liked Evans.
He worked for me, that's all. I'm not criticizing Carl. We have to look out for ourselves.
Now you're talking. You see, Joe...
Are you expecting somebody?
No.
Well, I'll go near the room. There's no need asking for trouble.
Okay, good idea, Joe.
Good morning, Mr. Fabian.
Oh, Lieutenant Rice. Good morning. Come in.
No, just stopped by for a routine questioning. I suppose you heard about the foreman on the Latimer Bridge job being killed?
Yes, very tragic accident.
We're not too sure about that accident part, Mr. Fabian.
Huh?
Mind telling me when you last saw Harry Evans, the foreman?
Only at the questionings, you know, the crime committee.
Yes, I know. They start him again next week, huh?
Yes, I understand.
Evans was supposed to be able to make it pretty hot for you, Mr. Fabian. Did you know that?
I had no idea. We weren't personal friends.
So I understand. But he worked for a friend of yours, didn't he?
Oh, I know Joe Latimer, if that's what you mean.
That's what I mean. Okay, Mr. Fabian, I'll see you at the crime hearings, huh?
I'll be there, Lieutenant. I believe all of us should feel it our duty to come forward and answer anything, anytime.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Fabian.
Are you sure you won't come in, Lieutenant? Have a cup of coffee?
Yes, I'm sure. Thanks just the same. See you around.
That was a cop, wasn't it, Carl? A cop.
Lieutenant Rice, yes. Why? What difference does it make?
How can you ask that? How can you stand there, not blink an eye when there's police around asking questions?
How, Joe? Simple. Because I'm a man with nothing to fear, that's how. You worry about construction, Joe. Oh, incidentally, contact Frank Kelsey for me today.
Frank Kelsey? Why?
I think Judge Mayfield is going to want some work done around his house.
Around his house? We're not interested in jobs like that.
But the Kelsey Construction Company will be. Tell Frank I said to submit a low bid on any work the judge requires. Tell him I mean low enough to be sure he gets the job.
I don't follow.
It's simple, Joe. I'll be able to hold it over the judge at a later date, just in case we need somebody on our side.
Oh, sure. I'll talk to Frank Kelsey this morning.
You do that, Joe, and now you better run on to the office. Keep things humming, nose to the grindstone and all that.
Sure, Carl. I was just leaving. Joe's the nervous type, isn't he, Carl? Liable to go to pieces under pressure. You, on the other hand, must see that no pressure occurs. You must keep a tight rein on your operation. A few moments later, the door buzzer sounds again. You wonder if Joe's nerves have gotten the best of him and that he's back for more assurance. But that isn't the case. The man at the door is the last man on earth that you want to see right now.
Hello, Mr. Fabian.
Hello.
I can see you don't remember me. Well, it's understandable. Guess we never did meet face to face.
I seem to recall your voice.
Oh, you heard it that night, huh? Where were you? Maybe hiding by the tool shed?
The night watchman.
The night watchman. Dreary job, Mr. Fabian. Nothing like this. Penthouse and all. Thought maybe you'd want to help me change it all.
Change it?
Yes, you see, Harry Evans wasn't quite dead when I reached him. Remember? He whispered your name.
No one will ever believe that. It's fantastic.
Oh, come off it. You don't really think you're going to send me away with a remark like that. Now, Mr. Fabian, I think you're going to be real hospitable. Invite me into your penthouse. Well?
Yes, of course. Come in.
Because the approach of a new year is always an appropriate time to take stock of one's blessings, we of the Signal Oil Organization would like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to all of you who have given us so much for which to be thankful. To you loyal Whistler fans whose continued preference for Signal products has helped us grow from a small start in one state into an organization now serving 7 western states, we are genuinely grateful. To independent Signal dealers whose conscientious service has helped so much to keep customers and their cars happy, we are mighty appreciative. So that all of us in the Signal Oil family may continue to merit your friendship and your business, you can count on us to continue our policy of making Signal products ever finer and Signal services even more complete. Throughout the coming year, as for the past 21 years, we shall do everything in our power to make your stops at Signal stations, as well as your miles behind the wheel, happy ones.
Well, Carl, until the night watchman and the bridge construction job dropped in, you thought you were in the clear. You were certain of it, weren't you, Carl? Certain that no one can prove that you had killed Harry Evans to prevent him from appearing as a witness in the forthcoming crime committee hearing. But now, Carl, your visitor, the night watchman at the bridge job, heard Evans brand you as a killer. You could deny it all, couldn't you, Carl? Or you could silence the little man who now stands before you in your living room, twisting a battered hat in his hand.
I know what's going through your mind just about now, Mr. Fabian.
Do you?
I think you should know that I didn't come up here tonight without any, protection. I wrote a letter. Everything I know about that little accident is in that letter.
I see.
Now, if anything was to happen to me...
Oh, nothing will. You needn't worry about that, Mr.
Wagner. But you may call me Ernie. All my friends call me Ernie.
All right, Ernie. Sit down.
Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Fabian. I will.
Tell me, Ernie, how do you like your present job?
Fine. Just fine.
Would you like it better at, say, double your present salary?
Well, that sounds real interesting. Only...
If it's more money you want...
I wouldn't mind that, Mr. Fabian, but...
Then what is it?
Well, I'm sort of getting along, you know. It's time a man of my years retired.
Well, of course, Jimmy, I quite agree. I think you misunderstand me. I said double the salary. I said nothing about you having to work.
Oh, well, that's mighty nice of you, Mr. Fabian. Real generous.
I think so, too. Well, it's settled then?
Sure, Mr. Fabian.
You've disposed of the threat, temporarily at least, haven't you, Carl? Yes. And that's all you wanted to do for the moment. But you know a man like Ernie Wagner can be dangerous because of what he knows, what he can do. And you know, too, that before long, you'll have to rid yourself of him somehow, permanently. The following morning, you call the Latimer Company.
Mr. Latimer's office.
Edna?
Oh, hello, Carl. How are you?
Fine, honey. Is Latimer there?
No, he went out some time ago, but he'll be back this afternoon. Shall I have him call you?
Yeah, what'd you do there, sweetheart? Any news?
Yeah. Mr. Latimer had a visitor this morning.
Did he?
The district attorney.
The district attorney?
They had a very long talk.
I see. What about?
Well, I don't know. I tried to find out, but when I walked into the office, they clammed up. They were in the office for about an hour. And when they came out, Mr. Latimer told the DA he'd think it over and let him know.
Thanks, honey. Buy yourself something and send me the bill as usual.
It's something to worry about, isn't it, Carl? The district attorney's visit to Latimer's office. It's possible that Latimer is going to be called as a witness at the crime committee hearings, isn't it? And you wonder why Latimer hasn't told you about it. There must be a reason, Carl. Yes, perhaps the district attorney has offered him a deal. Latimer could double-cross you, couldn't he? Tell him what he knows. You decide to have a little chat with him as soon as possible. But because he's delayed at Coaltown, you have to wait till the next day to see him.
Good morning, Joe.
Oh, Carl, sit down.
Oh, thanks.
What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, Joe, how about that Kelsey bid?
Oh, it went through okay. The judge accepted it. Kelsey and his boys started on it this morning.
Fine.
Something else you wanted to talk about?
Oh, yeah. I want you to double a man's salary, Joe. A man named Wagner, Ernie Wagner.
Oh, the night watchman on the bridge job. What's the idea?
Blackmail.
What?
He knows I pushed Harry Evans off that ramp.
He knows?
Yeah, Harry was still alive when the watchman reached him.
I see. Now, look, Carl, about his salary.
What's wrong?
Well, couldn't you handle it some other way? I don't want to get
We
mixed
do
up.
it my way. He gets twice the money in retirement.
Okay. Then.
And stop worrying. I'm the guy who's to appear before the committee, not you.
I know, Carl, but...
You haven't been summoned, have you?
Me? Why, no.
Okay. But if by any chance you are summoned, you'll let me know right away, won't you, Joe?
Yeah, sure. I'll let you know, Carl.
Fine. Well, I've got an appointment. I'll see you.
Okay, Carl.
Edna.
Yes, Carl?
I want you to keep a very close tab on what goes on around here from now on.
Very well, Carl.
I want to know every move Latimer makes, who his visitors are, who he talks to on the phone. You understand?
Yes, I understand, Carl.
It's important you keep a close watch on Latimer from now on, isn't it, Carl? Until you decide what you must do. He didn't mention the district attorney's visit, so you know he intends to double-cross you. But before that happens, you'll know about it, won't you? Yes. You know you can count on Edna. There's no word from her the next day, but the following morning she called.
Okay, sweetheart, what is it?
Latimer just talked to Judge Mayfield on the phone.
Mayfield, what did he say?
Well, nothing much, except he made an appointment to meet the judge at his home tonight, 8 o'clock.
I see.
Then he called the district attorney's office, asked the DA to meet him at the judge's home. The district attorney is bringing a stenographer.
A stenographer? All right, Edna, thanks.
You know exactly what your partner, Joe Latimer, plans to do, don't you, Carl? Yes. First, he'll reveal the trap you set up to implicate Judge Mayfield, and then he's going to file a written statement with the district attorney, reveal all he knows about you and your activities. But that meeting isn't going to take place, is it? Because you're going to act first. You call Leona, make a date. Ask her to stop by your apartment first for cocktails. You'll need a perfect alibi for what you plan, won't you, Carl?
And who could prove a better one than the niece of Judge Mayfield? And that evening, when she arrived...
Sorry I'm late, darling.
Only a few minutes. I'm afraid I'm the one who was late, Leona. I just got here a few minutes ago. Business appointment. Haven't had time to change yet.
You mentioned cocktails. Could the lady have one while she waits?
Chairman, the houseboy is fixing a batch of martinis now, extra dry, just the way you like it.
Good.
Here, let me take your turn. Now, don't go away.
Silly man, as if I would.
You hurry into the bedroom, then slip out onto the terrace, down the fire escape to the next floor. There you take the private elevator down to the garage. And a few moments later, you're racing toward Judge Mayfield's house. At 10 minutes to 8, you're standing in the shadows along the front walk to the judge's house. A few minutes later, a car stops in front. Then you hear footsteps approaching.
Hello, Latimer.
Carl.
Calling in the judge?
Oh, yes,
I don't think you'll make it, Joe.
Oh, now, wait, Carl. Let me explain.
I haven't that time. Sorry, Joe.
10 minutes later, you're back in your bedroom, changing quickly into your evening clothes. Your little plan worked perfectly, didn't it, Carl? No slips. And you're highly pleased with the way things have turned out for you.
I'm sorry it took so long, Leona. I'm a bit of a slowpoke when it comes to dressing, I'm afraid.
Let me look at you. Darling, how can any one man look so handsome, so distinguished?
Flattery will get you practically anything you want, dear lady. Have I told you how beautiful you are this evening?
As beautiful as some of the other creatures you've known?
More so, darling.
I don't believe a word of it, but I'd like to hear you say it. Here, I've poured your drink.
Oh, thanks.
To you, Carl.
To us, and a bright, happy future.
No cares, no worries.
That's right, Leona. No cares, no worries.
Extra pep, take those hills in high. Put Signal Ethel in your car and it will really fly.
If you're surprised to hear Marvin Miller sing, just wait till you hear your car sing when you treat it to its first tank full of Signal Ethel, the premium grade of Signal's famous Go Farther gasoline. Yes, it'll be music to your ears on cold mornings when you touch the starter and presto, your motor starts humming a tune quicker than you can turn on your radio. When it comes to acceleration, Signal Ethel will show you pep that makes even Dixieland jazz seem tame. And with Signal Ethel's responsive power, you'll soar up hills as smoothly and high as a coloratura from the Met soars to high seas. And why not? After all, Signal Ethel is engineered to bring out the best in any car of any age. So if it's best performance you want, just remember the famous last verse of that great shower room tenor, Marvin Miller. Go farther and have fun. Enjoy your every spin. To get more out of any car, put Signal Ethel in.
You're certain you're in the clear this time, aren't you, Carl? Yes. Even though you know the police will suspect you, that you had the motive, they won't be able to prove that you killed Joe Latimer. And you've arranged an alibi, too, haven't you? Leona Anders, niece of the highly respected Judge Mayfield. And so, after an evening of dining and dancing, the two of you return to your apartment. As you step inside...
Chan, no Chan,
Good evening, Mr. Fabian.
Well, Lieutenant Race. Allow me, Miss Anders, Lieutenant Race, homicide.
How do you do, Miss Anders?
Homicide? Is something wrong, Lieutenant?
Yeah, what's all this about?
Joe Latimer was murdered tonight, Mr. Fabian.
Joe murdered? Good Lord.
It happened in front of Judge Mayfield's house. The judge heard the shot and found the body.
Oh, Carl, how horrible.
Get right to the point, Mr. Fabian. Where were you this evening?
Why, Leona and I were at the Halloween Club.
Well, of course.
Mind trimming me in on the time, Mr. Fabian?
Well, let me see. Leona arrived here at the apartment shortly after 7:30.
That's right.
Somewhere around 8:15 and went directly to the club.
Mm-hmm. Joe Latimer was killed at approximately 10 minutes to 8. Where were you at 10 minutes of 8, Mr. Fabian?
I told you right here. Leona can tell you.
Was he with you all the time, Miss Anders?
Well, no. He went into the bedroom to dress.
How long was he in there?
Oh, 10, 15 minutes, I suppose. But see...
Now, maybe he wasn't in the bedroom. You could have slept out, Mr. Fabian, drove over to Judge Mayfield's house and killed Latimer.
Well, that's interesting, Lieutenant, but I'm afraid you'll have to have some proof to get very far.
I think I have. These, your shoes, Mr. Fabian.
My shoes?
I found them in your bedroom. If you look closely, you'll see traces of fresh cement on them.
What?
The cement you stepped in was almost dry. Otherwise, you probably would have noticed it when you changed your shoes.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The killer left some perfect footprints in the cement at Judge Mayfield's new patio. And if the prints match your shoes...
The judge's patio?
That's right. The judge is having some work done around the new house. The cement patio had been put in just this morning by the Kelsey Construction Company. But I don't suppose you'd know anything about that, would you, Mr. Fabian?
Let that whistle be your signal for the Signal Oil program, The Whistler, each Sunday night at this same time. Signal Oil Company has asked me to remind you, there's an easy way we can all help to make this holiday season happier for ourselves and others. Drive at sensible speeds, be courteous, and obey traffic regulations. It may save a life, possibly your own. Featured in tonight's story were Bill Foreman as the Whistler, Ted DeCorsia, Joe Gilbert, Ed Begley, Leo Cleary, Joe Forte, and Herbert Litton. The Whistler was produced and directed by George W. Allen with story by Adrian John Doe, music by Wilbur Hatch, and was transcribed and transmitted overseas by the Armed Forces Radio Service. The Whistler is entirely fictional, and all characters portrayed on The Whistler are also fictional. Any similarity of names or resemblance to persons living or dead is purely coincidental. Remember to tune in at the same time next Sunday, when the Signal Oil Company will bring you another strange story by The Whistler. Marvin Miller speaking for the Signal Oil Company.
Museum, a repository of death. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a goldfish bowl, an automatic gas range, a child's perambulator, all are touched by murder. Here's a can of weed killer. It's a familiar object. Every suburbanite with a patch of garden has used this, or something very much like it. After a while, one tires of pulling up the weeds and buys weed killer. Eliminates the backache.
Do you know offhand, Superintendent, whether the poison in weed killer deteriorates or becomes stronger with the passage of time?
Well, I'm not certain, Inspector. Any chemist could answer that, I imagine.
In this situation, some chemists will have to answer that.
Well, today, that can of weed killer can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
And here we are, in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's mausoleum of murder. Yes, here lies death. Here it is, preserved in objects which seem to reflect the horror of the crimes in which they once played their parts. Here's an arrow, full-feathered, tapered, clean-like steel-tipped. It's a graceful object made for flight and skill in an ancient art. Even in the act which brought it here, this weapon was thwarted. No arching bow sent it on its way. A powerful hand thrust sharply in the dark. And this arrow turned dagger and stabbed the life away. And here's a chalice. Jeweled, lovely. It's a work of art. Hard to find it here. And yet this achievement of the goldsmith's skill carried murder within its curving bowl. Yes. Now here we are. Here's the tin of weed killer. It's dried up now. Its contents are forever useless for any purpose. Still, was the poison it once contained any more probable for evil than the hidden poison which flowed through the place where this tale took place? Was, in fact, a lovely place, an English village. Its single street strung like a hammock between two hills, on one of which stand the remains of an ancient Norman castle. An ideal place to live, one would say, as John Ashley very often said to his wife Helen and his daughter Joy.
Remember, Helen, how we used to wish for a life like this when we were struggling in London? Before you came to us, Joy, my dear.
I remember. You've accomplished it for us, John. You may clear the table, Sarah.
Very well, ma'am.
From all the stories you told, Dad, I'll never marry a young lawyer.
Oh, you might do worse. You might do worse with that. What's the matter, Helen?
That pain again, John. Oh, it'll pass as soon as I've had some tea.
I wish you'd see Dr. Gordon about this, Helen. It worries.
Oh, yes, a very nice place to live. And a nice family in the house on the slope of the hill. An occasional complaint, of course. Even an occasional disagreement, but everything quite normal. Except to certain people in the village below.
Why he won't let his wife join our garden club, I never understand. Never. And she does exactly as he tells her. And the way she's under his thumb, no woman would permit it unless she was deathly afraid of something.
That was Mrs. Brooks. Very interested in gardening is Mrs. Brooks. Her husband sells the gardening tools and materials locally. Very interested in better trees and flowers.
I was her first friend in the village. I watched her just waste away. It must be his fault. You know, sometimes I believe he beats her.
Miss Goodson was a worthy soul. If she read more books, perhaps she'd have less time on her hands. As it is, she has a bit too much time on her hands.
Don't doubt it, not for a minute. Wait till Martha Gordon hears this.
Well, I'd like not to believe it, but if you tell me, dear.
No, I think I can on the best authority, my own eyes.
If there is something to be done.
That was, well, the climate of public opinion. At least on the distaff side at the time of the Sunday luncheon in the Ashley household.
An excellent luncheon, Helen, my dear. You must compliment cook.
Oh, John.
But
I think I'm going to faint.
Helen.
Mother. Oh, it's taking me to the side. I can't breathe. Oh, the pain.
Helen, the wine.
Mother, let me get you.
Joy, quickly. Get Dr. Gordon here. At once. If you have to, take the car and fetch him.
All right, Dad, of course.
Helen, I'm getting you to bed. Sarah, please help me. Mrs. Ashley is taken ill.
The poor woman.
Take her arm, Sarah. Gently now.
Carefully, gently, they took Helen Ashley up to her bedroom. The doctor came at Joy's urgent, even tearful call.
Please, Dr. Gordon. My mother's taken terribly ill. Please, hurry.
But the doctor wasn't half as alarmed as the family.
So I don't believe there's really anything to worry about. Gastric disturbances can be painful, but my prescription will ease her. In the meantime, company will take her mind off the pain, or what's left of it. Then it will do her good to see Miss Goodson. A little gossip never hurt any woman. If you need me, I'll be available, and I'll drop you.
However, the good Miss Goodson was not as easily satisfied as the doctor. She stayed with Helen Ashley some 15 minutes and then entered the living room to announce,
Of course, it's really not my business, except I've grown so fond of your wife since you've been living here.
What is it, Miss Goodson?
Well, since you ask, she's a lot more ill than you or David Gordon seem to think. I suggest a nurse at once.
Do you really think so?
But the doctor said... I don't use words lightly, Mr. Ashley. And I've been around illness all my life. I nursed my father for 10 years. I know sickness when I see it. And I know just the woman, Nurse Thomas. She's just a practical but very efficient.
Nurse Thomas came to the Ashley house at once and took charge of the patient. However, a little before 9 o'clock that evening...
I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Ashley, but I have to leave now.
Really, nurse? I was under the impression you would stay overnight at least.
I can't. I have my children. They'll have had no dinner until I get home, and my mother, past 80, you know.
Is my wife resting well?
Quite easily. She complained that Dr. Gordon's medicine caught at the back of her throat, but, that means nothing. I'm sorry, but I'll have to leave. I'll be back first thing tomorrow.
The Ashley household retired for the night. John left the nightlight burning in the bedroom. At 2 a.m., John awoke, looked at his wife. Then he stumbled to the door of Joy's room and knocked.
Dad! What is it?
Joy, your mother is dead.
Helen Ashley passed away in her sleep. There was mourning in the house on the slope of the hill. In the village below.
I knew it. I told him she was desperately ill. I told him.
It's too bad. Such a nice little person. So sweet. How could she have married that man?
I hope they find him out. Never even a civil good day to a person.
Do you really suppose there is something suspicious?
I wouldn't put it past him. Why, Nurse Thomas says. I felt something strange the moment I walked in the door. If I had any influence with my brother, I'd have made him refuse to sign a death certificate. Heart disease. Huh.
It was talk, idle talk. At least it seemed so at first. But it had its effects. It accumulated as some poisons do. And it had a result, as some poisons do.
Here's another of these letters, Superintendent.
Any signature this time?
Yes, sir.
That's a change. Who's it from?
It's signed by Nurse Thomas. It's a bit vague, sir, but on the same lines as the other anonymous letters which we've already received.
Oh, all right. Well, let me have a look at it. Dear Sir, I have come to the conclusion that it is my duty to draw your attention to the rumors which are common knowledge throughout the neighborhood concerning Mr. Ashley and the recent death of his wife, Helen. I can claim to have a personal knowledge of the case, as I was the nurse in charge. Now, what do you make of that, Sergeant?
There's certainly nothing anonymous about this letter, sir.
I feel that you should know my suspicions are shared by friends and neighbors of the Ashleys, and that all of us consider our duty that justice should be done. Yours truly, etc. That justice should be done. Oh, well, we shall see. Sergeant.
Yes, sir?
I think we'd better have a little talk with Nurse Thomas. So you believe, Nurse, that the police ought to look into this?
I certainly do. There must be some reason back of all this talk. Where there's smoke, you know, Superintendent.
Nurse Thomas, may I remind you that I didn't get to the rank of Superintendent of this district by listening to rumors. Have you any facts?
Well, I'm not a detective.
Well, tell me what you know, Nurse.
Sarah Freeman, she's the Ashley housemaid, swears that he didn't drink any of the wine at lunch. That was hardly his custom.
Go on.
I've been on a good many cases. This one was really peculiar. The doctor wasn't disturbed any more than her husband was. But she died at 2 a.m. The whole thing is highly suspicious. And Sarah thinks...
Now, never mind the rumors, Nurse. However, I may make a few inquiries.
The superintendent knew his duty. He took the liberty of asking John Ashley to stop in and chat with him.
You realize, of course, Mr. Ashley, that this is strictly on an informal basis.
I can think of no reason why it should be formal.
Well, there have been reports, rumors. I dare say you've heard a few.
I've heard all of them. In fact, to spare my daughter, I sent her to London to stay with a cousin for a while.
Yes, it is most distressing. I assume, Mr. Ashley, you would like to set all this gossip at rest. Put an end to it once and for all.
Nothing will be a greater relief to me. Have you any suggestions, Superintendent?
Yes, I have. It's drastic, But, well, if all is well, as I have every reason to believe, it may be unpleasant, but it would certainly be effective.
What is it, sir?
Exhumation of your wife's body and a post-mortem, with your express approval.
As you wish, sir. I shall be glad to cooperate in every way possible.
The vital step had been taken. From now on, John Ashley was engaged in a fight for his life. Much was against him, and not the least was the tin of weed killer, which can be seen today in the Black Museum.
And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
They did not permit Helen Ashley to rest for long. The exhumation order was signed and the postmortem proceeded. Shortly thereafter, a coroner's inquest was held. The jury were all natives of the district, of course, all of them with some contact with the rumors which seemed to grow wilder and more frequent as the secrecy continued. There were 3 witnesses at the inquest. First, Dr. David Gordon himself.
Yes, I performed the post-mortem and the subsequent analyses.
What did he find?
My findings were confirmed by the analyst of the Home Office, to whom I transmitted them through the Superintendent of Police, together with the necessary items for his own tests.
And the report, Doctor?
Helen Ashley's body contained 18 milligrams of arsenic, sufficient indeed to cause death.
Mr. Brooks, purveyor of gardening tools and materials, being away on a business trip, Mrs. Brooks took the witness stand.
Yes. When my husband is away, I run the business. I'm completely familiar with all his records.
Oh, you are you? What about it?
Well, less than 2 years ago, we sold a tin of weed killer to Mr. Ashley. The brand was that type which contains arsenic.
The third and last witness was housemaid Sarah Freeman.
Mr. Ashley was in the pantry where the wine was kept for 10 minutes at least that Sunday. I know because he held me up setting the table and all.
Did she serve any particular item that day?
There was the wine. It was Mrs. Ashley's favorite brand. She always took a glass with a big meal of the day. The bottle was open in the pantry.
And, of course, Mr. Ashley did not drink any that Sunday.
I offered it to him myself. He refused, and I poured some for the poor lady.
The verdict of the coroner's jury is obvious, isn't it?
Well, here's a pretty kettle of fish. A coroner's court not only finding in favor of murder, but naming the murderer.
Nobody could say they were slow to come to a decision, sir.
On the contrary, Sergeant. I only hope they haven't been a little too fast. Oh, well, we shall see. Meantime, thank goodness our responsibility is going to be a shared one from now on.
You mean it's a case for the yard, sir?
No doubt about it.
Yes, sir?
Put me through to London. I want to speak to Inspector Glenn at Scotland Yard.
Glenn here?
This is Superintendent Maxwell. You remember the case I sent you the papers on last week, Inspector? The Ashley case?
Oh, yes. Any developments?
There certainly are. If possible, I'd like you to come down here straight away. I'm glad Scotland Yard has come into this, Inspector. What with the verdict and all, we're hardly equipped down here to complete the evidence.
The verdict, yes. We find that Helen Ashley died of acute arsenical poisoning and that the poison was administered by her husband, John Ashley. I've seen a few cases with more complete evidence in my time.
Yeah, no doubt. So have I. But what can we do? Besides arrest Ashley and have him arraigned?
Nothing, I'm afraid. Nothing at all. Well, he hardly seems the type to obstruct justice by running away.
Far from obstructing justice, John Ashley helped the authorities in every way he could.
I understand, Inspector. What did you say your name was?
Glenn. Inspector William Glenn, CID.
Yes, of course. I assume you'll be looking for the weed killer there's been so much talk about.
Yes, we will.
Yes, well, you'll find it in the garage with the gardening things. It's in there somewhere. Exactly where, I'm afraid I can't tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Now, if you're quite ready, shall we go along?
Yes, why not?
If you'll just precede me.
It's quite warm out, I gather. I doubt if I need a top coat.
No, and my car's at your door.
There he is!
I'm sorry. I didn't know they'd gathered out here. We could have used the back way.
Oh, no matter. I can face them. I won't do anything but call names.
John Ashley was formally charged the next morning and held for the next assizes. The case for the Crown was not remarkable for its completeness. Inspector Glenn was a witness.
The defendant admitted possessing the weed killer. In fact, he helped us to find it in his garage.
Have you uncovered any evidence, Inspector, to indicate that my client did, in fact, administer the poison?
Poison is almost always given in secret. One rarely has a witness to the fact.
Dr. Gordon repeated his testimony at the coroner's inquest. There was no cross-examination. Sarah Freeman, on the other hand, was the subject of quite intense questioning by the defense.
Why did you find it worthy of remark that Mr. Ashley spent some time in your pantry?
I'd never known him to be in there before.
I say to you that almost every Sunday before luncheon, he did go into the pantry from the garden to wash his hands.
No, he didn't.
Many, many times.
No, he always went upstairs.
I submit to you that it was a long way to the bathroom upstairs.
Not very.
Do you realize that Mr. Ashley is in peril of his life?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you stand here swearing that it was unusual for him to use the pantry to wash his hands?
Yes, sir, I do.
Sarah Freeman, are you telling the truth?
I swore on the Bible, sir.
Are you telling the truth?
Yes, sir, I am.
No further questions.
Next in the parade of witnesses was Nurse Thomas. She told her story, her experience, and her suspicions. Once again, counsel for the defense took over.
You are a practical nurse, is that correct?
I am.
You are not registered. Your training has not been formal.
I know my job.
Answer the question.
I know my job.
But you are not a registered nurse.
I am a practical nurse.
When you left the Ashley house at 9 o'clock, were you satisfied that the patient was in no danger?
I had to go home.
If you felt she was in danger, would you have gone?
I had to go home.
For personal reasons?
My mother is past 80. My children needed their dinner.
I suggest to you, Mrs. Thomas, that a registered nurse would not have left. Then you were satisfied that the patient was in no danger.
I had to leave. I told Mr. Ashley.
Did the patient complain to you about the medicine?
She complained to the maid. The maid told me.
What did you do about it?
I tasted it myself.
Did the medicine affect you?
Not at all.
What was the dose?
2 teaspoonfuls in a little water 3 times a day.
Did you give the medicine before you left?
I did.
And you were satisfied there was no danger to the patient?
I had to go when I did.
Very well. You had to go when you did. That is all.
The stubbornness, the slight irregularities in behavior of this nurse seemed to be having their effect on the jury. There was a feeling of impatience, even of doubt, in the courtroom as counsel for the defense called
Miss Joy Ashley, please.
The girl, quiet, composed, took the stand in her father's defense.
Miss Ashley, I know you realize that your father is on trial here for his life.
I do.
Can you say without reservation that you're going to tell the absolute truth?
Yes, sir, I am.
If you had any doubt of his innocence, what would you do?
Tell the truth. My mother is dead. If I thought for a moment that my father had done it, even then I would tell the truth.
Very well. Now then, the 3 of you had luncheon together that day.
We did.
At the same time, from the same main dishes?
Yes, sir.
There has been some doubt cast on the contents of a certain bottle of wine. Your former housemaid has testified that the bottle was nearly empty at the end of the meal, that she threw the bottle away. Was this common practice, do you know?
It was.
I see. Now then, what do you recall concerning the serving of that wine that day?
Sarah, the maid, offered it to my father first, as she always did.
Did he accept it?
No, he did not.
What did the maid do next?
She offered it to my mother. Mother took some.
And then?
Then Sarah offered it to me. I let her fill my glass. It was excellent. I asked for some more. I remember Mother expressing her surprise that I should drink 2 glasses of wine.
Thank you, Miss Ashley. That is all.
It was dramatic to stage. The Crown had no questions for Joy Ashley. The defense rested. After a brief recess, He began his summation. Quickly, he reviewed the evidence as presented, never denying the fact that Helen Ashley had died of arsenical poisoning. But he did conclude.
We have made no attempt to deny the scientific facts of this case. But I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that at no time has my client's behavior even suggested guilt. More, I suggest that at no point has my honored colleague proved motive, much less the actual administration of the lethal dose. And I go on to suggest that there exists a reasonable doubt concerning my client's guilt in this matter. He has pleaded not guilty. I suggest that not guilty is the only proper verdict in the case of the Crown versus John Ashley.
The jury was out for 3 hours. The verdict was brief.
We find the prisoner not guilty.
John Ashley was a free man. But one thing he never learned, not to the day of his death, but privately the jury sent this message in writing to the judge who presided at the trial. We are satisfied on the evidence that Helen Ashley received a dangerous dose of arsenic on Sunday, July 16th, but we are not satisfied that it was the immediate cause of her death. Nor does the evidence satisfy us concerning how or by whom this arsenic was administered. We cannot take a man's life when reasonable doubt such as this exists in our minds. We have therefore returned the verdict, not guilty. And still today, that tin of weed killer has its place in the Black Museum.
Here in person is Orson Welles.
Helen Ashley died of arsenical poisoning. There was no question about that. There was grave question as to how the poison was administered. But whether it was in the wine or the food or the medicine, no one knows. John Ashley died some few years after his trial in poverty, a weary, broken man. In his case, the doctors certified his death and no question was raised, save by those who remembered the charges against him and the wagging tongues of the gossips in the kindly seeming English village where he'd made his home. Those who remembered had cause for thought. Could it be said that John Ashley died by gossip? Certainly not by any other poison. Now, until we meet next time, we meet in the same place and I tell you another story about the Black Museum. I remain, as always, obediently yours.
The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles, is presented by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Radio Attractions. The program is written by Ara Marion, with original music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch. Produced by Harry Allen Towers.
There's the Black Museum.
The Mysterious Traveler. Written, produced, and directed by Robert A. Arthur and David Coleman. And starring one of radio's foremost actors, Dick Carpenter. This is the Mysterious Traveler inviting you to join me on another journey into the realm of the strange and the terrifying. I hope you will enjoy the trip, that it will thrill you a little and chill you a little.
Any of you are still listening in, not having fled yet.
I have a confession to make. To you, the American people. The enemy is advancing across the countryside at a speed of 15 miles an hour. And I, Stephen Reynolds, am responsible for the enemy's presence. I, and I alone, betrayed you. It wasn't intentional, and yet that's a small comfort to those of you fleeing for your lives. Before you condemn me, those few who may still be hearing my voice, please listen and try to understand. Perhaps if you hear my story exactly as it happened, you may find it in your hearts to forgive me. It began a year ago at the Lynbrook Country Club, not far from the campus of State University. A banquet was being held in honor of Dr. Charles Warren in recognition of his vast contributions to organic chemistry. The main speaker at the banquet is the governor of the state, who was there to speak in tribute to Dr. Warren. We who know Dr. Warren and his brilliant work can only join in the worldwide tribute that he has won with his discovery of beryllium, the new miracle organic soil compound. On this happy occasion, it is my privilege to bestow on Dr. Warren State University's highest award, the DuPage Medal of Science. Captain Thomas, ladies and gentlemen, this is indeed a happy moment in my life. For a scientist, there can be no greater reward than in serving his fellow men and bringing knowledge and light where there was none. The discovery of beryllium begins a new era. For with this new organic compound, man is now able to revitalize soil that has been barren for hundreds of years. That the dream has become a reality, I owe largely to those of you who made my research through all these years possible. Without your kindness and invaluable aid, the discovery of beryllium would not have been possible. Thank you. Great moment in your father's life, man. You're now one of the immortals of science. Let's go out on the lawn. It's hot.
No, you ever see so many newspaper men?
Yes, it's a big story. Your father will undoubtedly win the Nobel Prize next year.
You really think so?
No, we can't miss. You may not realize it, but you're the daughter of a famous man now.
One of these days, I'll be the wife of a famous scientist. That is, if you haven't changed your mind about marrying me.
That's one thing I'll never change my mind about.
I've never been so happy.
Nor I. You're going to have everything you want, Anne. A lovely home, jewels, servants.
I'll settle for this.
You've never known poverty, Anne. That's why you don't realize how important money is. We're going to have money, and a great deal of it, very soon.
Where is it coming from?
For the past few months, I've been working secretly on an experiment. If I meet with success, and I expect to, we'll be wealthy beyond our dreams.
An experiment? What sort of experiment, Steve?
Your father, after years of research, has discovered an organic compound that revitalizes barren soil. My experiment, Anne, approached the problem of food productivity on a different basis.
How?
Can you imagine what it would mean to mankind if a wheat crop could be grown in 2 weeks instead of the 4 months it takes? Think of 10 wheat crops a year, where before there had been only 2.
But that's impossible.
Nothing's impossible. Think of it, Anne. Crops literally growing overnight. A food abundance such as the world has never known before.
But how?
I'm experimenting with a new chemical formula which has chlorophyll as its base. This formula will assist nature, accelerate the growth of plant life 100-fold. I've already had some small success, but I haven't reached the ultimate goal yet.
And when you do?
When I do, why, 1 gallon of this new formula sprayed over an acre of land will produce a crop almost overnight. I'll be world famous, Anne. A millionaire. A millionaire. Of course. This new formula of mine, when perfected, will put your father's soil compound, Nerilium. Well, it won't be very important in the face of my discovery.
Steve, this experiment, is it important because it'll do a great scientific advance? Or because it'll make you wealthy?
Why, I'm working for science and humanity, and you know that. But there's no harm in wanting to be wealthy, is there? I know now that what I said to Anne wasn't true. I wasn't working for humanity. I was working for Steve Reynolds and the huge reward and honors that could be won. Yes, I wanted success more than anything else in life, no matter what the cost. In the months that followed, I worked day and night, rarely leaving the laboratory. One experiment followed another as I searched for the right formula. Then one day I was called by Dr. Warren's secretary and asked to come to his office. Steve, I have here your progress report for the past 6 months. You seem to have made little, if any, progress in your study of soil erosion. Well, to tell the truth, I've given up my study of soil erosion. I'm working on something else. From your report, I guessed as much. Steve, I dislike saying this, but we can't ignore the obligations of your fellowship. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you on behalf of the trustees to give up whatever experiment you're engaged in. I won't do it. I've been at it months, working day and night on this experiment. I'm too close to success now to give up. Steve, the trustees... When I've succeeded, and I will, I'll be world famous. Wealthy. One of the great scientists of all time. I see. You've got to keep that progress report of mine from the trustees so that they don't interfere. There must be some excuse you can give them. I'm sorry, Steve, but I must pass it along to them. Those are the rules. I'm asking you to break the rules. I can't. Not for you, myself, or anyone else. Anne has told you my experiments, hasn't she? I know. You don't want me to succeed, do you? That's why you won't help me. Now, Steve, you're overworked. Nervous. Otherwise, you just... Nothing will stop me, do you hear? Not you, nor the trustees, or the whole university. I'll go on with my experiment, and I'll succeed.
You've quarreled and you've resigned your fellowship?
That's right. I'm clearing my things out of this lab and leaving.
Where are you going?
I rented a small farm 20 miles out of town. I'm going to continue my experiments there.
Steve, you can't leave the university, not like this. It'll be a mark against your career.
Before I'm finished, your father, the trustees, and the whole university will come to me hat in hand.
You speak of father as though he were your enemy.
He's no friend. That I can tell you. If he had wanted, he could have withheld that report from the trustees.
You're so determined to achieve success that you're blind to everything else. You've lost all sense of perspective.
So you're on your father's side.
Yes, because he's right. You value fame and money above everything else.
And why not? Is there anything else in the world that counts?
Steve, you're like a stranger. I think our being married would be a mistake.
Perhaps it would.
Here's your ring. Right.
When Anne left, I knew I was really alone. I moved my belongings into the farmhouse I'd rented and set up a small laboratory there. Went back to working day and night, for I knew it was a race against time. I had exactly $700 to my name, and once that was gone, I'd have to find a job. The weeks that followed were ones of unceasing work. One experiment followed another as I sought that elusive formula which would accelerate growth in plant life 100-fold. In those few moments of rest I took, I would think of Anne. Only my work kept me from going to her and apologizing. Just a minute.
Oh, sweet darling. I couldn't stay away any longer, knowing you were here all alone.
Have you forgiven me for the way I am?
Oh, yes. Yes. Darling, you don't look well at all. Your eyes are so bloodshot. You've lost weight.
Oh, I've been so busy half the time I forgot to eat.
How's your work coming?
Not so well. I'm on the right trail. I know I am, but I haven't been able to perfect the formula. I'm working on experiment 87 now.
How long can you go on?
Well, you needn't worry, Anne. Even if I wanted to go on, I can't. My money's just about gone.
Don't feel too badly about it.
Yeah, I'm so close to succeeding. I know I am.
But it isn't as though you can't pick up your experimental future, Steve. After you've had some rest and a chance to think everything out.
Yes, I suppose you're right. Come inside. I'll show you the lab I fixed.
All right, darling.
I haven't got the fancy equipment that was available at the university, but I do have everything I need. Here we are.
How crowded you are here.
Yes, you see, each experiment called for a small, separate box of Earth. There are 87 boxes in the room. That's why it's so crowded. Over there's the box with formula number 1. From there, the boxes run across the floor, too.
Good night, Steve.
Oh. Formula 87.
Formula 87.
That box over there. And look. Plant growth. 4 sprouts.
Oh, what about it, Steve?
This morning at 7 o'clock, I planted 4 seeds in this box, and I injected the soil with formula 87.
This morning at 7?
Yes, it's now noon. These sprouts grew in 5 hours.
5 hours?
And I think I've succeeded. I've found the formula.
Steve, I've a strange feeling. But I can see those sprouts growing before my very eyes.
They are.
Those sprouts, what are they?
Tomatoes. This rate of growth continues, and by noon tomorrow, these plants will have matured. And they'll be bearing ripe tomatoes.
It's on, darling.
Oh, just a minute. Good morning, Anne. Dr. Warren. Anne told me of your amazing discovery, Steve. I hope you don't mind my coming here with us. Oh, of course not. Come in. I seem to have overslept. What time is it?
9 o'clock.
The tomato plant. Come along. They're mature and bearing full-grown green tomatoes. And these plants are from the seeds you planted only yesterday morning? Yes. Here are my notes. 7 a.m., 4 tomato seeds planted. 7:05, 250 cc, the formula 87 injected into the soil. That's incredible. Simply incredible. In a few more hours, those tomatoes will be ripe, ready to be eaten. Just 30 hours after I planted the seeds. Formula 87 will mean the end of famine. Word. My families will be able to grow their own fruits and vegetables almost overnight, using but a few square yards of earth. Yes. Come out into the garden. There should be more to see. More to see? Yes, yesterday afternoon after Ann left, I planted an acre of tomato seeds and sprayed the acre with 5 gallons of formula 87. Look, Doctor. The acre is completely covered with half-grown tomato plants. By late this afternoon, those plants will have produced a crop of ripe tomatoes. I wonder if you fully realize the implications of your discovery, Steve. It means the end of agricultural life as man has known it these thousands of years. With your discovery, a new era has begun for mankind. Yes, as we stood there in the garden, there could be no question that every man, woman, and child on Earth would be affected by my discovery. It took no urging on my part to have Dr. Warren and Ann stay on. They were too entranced to leave the garden and the plants that were growing before their very eyes. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, there was an acre of completely ripened tomatoes ready for consumption. Dr. Warren, Ann, and I returned to the house, and I persuaded them to stay overnight. We were all up at dawn, eager to see the plant growth that had taken place during the night. It was Dr. Warren who, as he led us into the garden, made the startling discovery. Steve, look. What is it, Doctor? All I see is an acre of overripe tomatoes. The plant life surrounding the acre.
Well, there's nothing but dense overgrowth, Father. Weeds, vines, wild grass.
Look how thick it is. And it's all 6 feet high. You're right. Yesterday, there was nothing there to speak of. The weeds were just knee-high. Yes, I recall.
What does it mean?
Well, apparently, when I sprayed the acre where I planted, some of Formula 87 carried a little beyond, causing those weeds and other plants to grow overnight to 6 feet. The question now is, have they stopped growing? Well, come along. Let's have a look.
Thickness of those weeds. The other plants are like a jungle growth.
A jungle growth. Yes, I was thinking the same. It's difficult to tell from here how far it extends. Can't be more than those few feet where I sprayed beyond the acre. Here we are. So let's walk through it. See how deep it is. All right. The two of you had better follow the path I'm making. It's pretty thick through here. Yes. We're almost 30 feet into this growth. How much further does it extend? I don't know. Can't tell yet.
Like the high grass of the African bush.
Yes. We've come quite a way now. Can't even see the farmhouse behind us anymore.
Did you say we are going in circles? It can't extend this far.
So we're walking a straight line. I've been following the sun.
Dad, how far do you think we've come?
Oh, at least 100 yards. Well, the growth is beginning to thin out. I think we've reached the outer fringe of it. Yeah, here's the field.
Oh, thank goodness we're out of that.
Steve, do you realize how many acres that growth covers? At least 10 acres, and it all sprang up since late yesterday afternoon. What do you make of it, Doctor? This Formula 87 of yours not only accelerates the growth of plant life 100-fold where sprayed, but also affects the surrounding acreage.
What is it in Formula 87 that causes it to spread?
You must realize, Anne, that in this new formula we're dealing with the unknown. Well, perhaps Steve can explain why it caused such a growth on an additional 10 acres. No, I can't, Doctor. As much a puzzle to me as it is to you.
What are you doing, Steve?
Following up a few small marks to mark how far the growth extends. As of this moment.
As of this moment?
Yes, Anne. For even a few minutes we've stood here, the growth is continuing. And it's spreading.
Good morning. This is Bill Storm with the 9 o'clock news. Well, startling news has been coming in over the press wires in the last 10 minutes. A young associate professor, Stephen Reynolds of State University, discovered a new chemical formula which has the power to accelerate plant life growth 100-fold. While engaged in experiments on his farm 20 miles outside of Statesville, Professor Reynolds sprayed an acre of land with his new discovery, Formula 87. One of the amazing results of this experiment was the growth overnight of a 1-acre crop of tomatoes. But another result, which seems almost incredible to this reporter, is the news that Formula 87 caused plant life in surrounding acreage to grow overnight into a fantastic growth and become so thick and profuse as to cause on-the-spot observers to compare it to jungle growth. Even more amazing, the growth seems to be spreading in all directions at the rate of 100 acres an hour. Already it has spread over 2,000 acres of land. Agricultural experts and scientists are being rushed to the scene of this phenomenon. Stay tuned for further news flashes during the day.
the dynamite give any results? None at all. Oh, here comes the governor. There you are, Dr. Warren. All right, what's the latest word? The growth is now spreading at the rate of a mile an hour in every direction. Why, that means thousands of acres of valuable land turning into jungle every hour. Yes, and what's more, it's spreading at an accelerated speed. By evening, it'll be spreading at a rate of 3 miles an hour. Haven't you been able to do anything to stop it? Well, we've tried dynamite fire, all to no avail. I have the best scientific brains in the country working on the problem, but as yet we haven't been able to determine what it is that's causing this wild growth to spread. Young man, this catastrophe is of your doing. Have you any idea as to what is causing this growth to spread in such a frightening manner? I'm not certain, but I think Formula 87 created a new type of pollen. And it's the pollen which is spreading this growth. A new type pollen? Well, what makes you think that, Steve? I just got a report that the growth has crossed the Ardmore River and it's spread to the other bank. The Ardmore River? Well, that's half a mile wide. Yes, and that's why I'm convinced it's a pollen of some sort that's carrying this plant. You're probably right. Well, can't you come up with a new spray? Something that will stop it? We'll do what we can, Governor. We're not losing a minute. What's going to happen, Doctor, when this jungle growth reaches villages and towns? We will already have to evacuate farmers. Yes. We'll work day and night, Governor, to find the answer to all this. At the fantastic rate it's spreading, I'd better order out our National Guard. And ask for assistance from Washington. This is Bill Storm, speaking to you from the state capitol. Well, the green plague continues to advance, and Governor Thomas has declared a state emergency. Martial law has been imposed with the full approval of Washington. The green plague has spread over an area of 40,000 acres. 4 villages and 2 towns were evacuated shortly before they were engulfed by this advancing jungle growth, which scientists have been unable to explain or halt. These scientists state that the growth is accelerating its advance from hour to hour and is now moving at a rate of 15 miles an hour. Meanwhile, on the spot observers state that plants, vines, and trees are literally springing up before their very eyes, and that this fantastic and relentless growth is crushing and destroying all that which lies before it. All residents of the state capital have been evacuated, and momentarily we expect orders to abandon this station. However, full news reports will be continuously broadcast from other stations. Meanwhile, reports from Washington indicate that... Ladies and gentlemen, I have just received the signal that this station is to be abandoned. Tune in to other stations for further news flashes.
Steve, we better leave the studio, the station.
Leave? Look, you two had better come with me. You heard me broadcast. We're abandoning this station.
Come on, Steve.
Well, what about those people who may not have been tuned in? May not know about the green plague?
Look, Mr. Reynolds, I've done what I was told to do. I'm not responsible for people who didn't hear my warnings.
But I am.
What? Oh, you mean because...
Yes.
Well, we'd better get going. There's no time to discuss this.
Is the equipment still on?
Yes, why?
And you leave it, Mr. Storm. I'll follow later.
What are you going to do?
Some people may tune into the station, may not know what's happening. I'm going to stay here a while longer, broadcast the warning.
Then I'll stay too.
Look, I'm leaving. You'd better make up your minds in a hurry.
We'll stay for a while.
Okay, if that's the way you want it. So long.
Still not too late to change your mind.
No. Go ahead, Steve.
Then if you are still listening in, this is Stephen Reynolds speaking to you from the state capitol. This is to warn you that a terrible force of nature has been unleashed. I, and I alone, am responsible for what has happened. But that's a small comfort to those of you fleeing for your lives, unable to understand the disaster that was brought about by my experiments. Experiments I was interested in for a personal gain, not for the advancement of science and humanity. Perhaps that's the reason. The green plague. It's reached town.
Let's get out of here.
Give me your hand.
Steve, it sounds almost like an earthquake.
Yes. This way to the street.
The trees. The bushes are growing before our very eyes. These are uprooting the buildings.
Look. The building is across the street.
It's going to come down. Run!
over again. Oh, you have to get off here. I'm sorry. I'm sure we'll meet again. I take this same train every week at this same time. You have just heard The Mysterious Traveler. Now you can enjoy other tense and exciting stories of The Mysterious Traveler in the current issue of The Mysterious Traveler magazine are available. All characters in our story are fictitious. Any resemblance to actual persons or name or otherwise is purely coincidental. Music is under the direction of Emerson Buckley, composed by Richard U. Page. Phil Tonkin speaking. This program came to you from New York.
The Strange Dr. Weird.
Good evening. Come in, won't you? Why, what's the matter? You seem a bit nervous. Perhaps the cemetery outside this house has upset you. But there are things far worse than cemeteries. For instance, an hypnotic force which drives a person to murder, as in the story I want to tell you tonight. A story I call The Knife of Death. My story, The Knife of Death, begins several years ago in the city of London. All London is blacked out, waiting for the nightly visit of German bombers. Henry Hawkins, an air raid warden, slowly makes his way through a street filled with wreckage with the aid of a blackout lantern. As Big Ben strikes the hour, Hawkins stops and listens.
Is that you, Albert? Yes. None other, Henry, me lad. It's 10 o'clock and I'm here to relieve you. Look at this street, will you? Pretty mess them Jerry's made of it last night. Aye. He's hardly outstanding. Well, I'd best be getting on home, Albert, before the missus begins worrying. I'll walk a bit of the way with you, Henry. Thanks, Albert. Yeah, you mind the wreckage now, Henry? Oh, this lantern ain't much, but without it we'd break our necks. Now, half a minute, Albert. Shine your light this way, will you? What's up? I kicked something that was... Here it is. Blimey, it's a knife. Aye. Wait till I clean it up a bit. Henry, look. The handle of that knife. Why, it's blood red. Aye. The handle seems to be carved out of some kind of stone. Looks like ruby to me. How does it that? Look at the way it gleams and glitters, Henry. I've never seen anything like it. Nor have I. The handle looks like a pool of blood. And when you hold the lantern close to it, the fire of the stone seems to go right through you. Henry, what's come over you? Come off it, will you? Fire of the stone makes me feel all warm inside and strong. It does, eh? Let me hold it a bit, Henry. Now, just a minute, Henry. Half of that knife is mine. I helped you find it, didn't I? Stop reaching for it. It's fine, I tell you. Half of that knife is mine. I got a right to hold it. Now, give it here. Try to take it from me, would you? Well, take this, Henry. Don't. What? What have I done? Albert, speak to me. Oh, I didn't mean to stab you, Albert. He's dead. I've murdered him. If they catch me, they'll hang me for this. I've got to get out of here.
Is that you, Henry?
Yes.
Where you been? It's 12:30.
I stopped at the corner pub.
Henry, you've been drinking.
Oh, what if I have? The man has a few drinks and he acts as though he's murdered someone. Well, I got a right to take a few drinks.
Stop shouting, Henry. I'm not deaf. Here, I'll hang up your coat for you.
I can hang it up myself.
What fell out of... Why, it's a knife. Henry, what are you doing with a knife?
I found it. Here, let it alone. It's mine.
Why, there's fresh blood all over the blade.
Aye. Look, Millie. It's just the color of the ruby handle.
Henry, how did blood get on that blade?
Glows and glitters like it was alive. It makes me feel all warm inside. Warm and strong.
Henry, you frighten me when you talk like that. You'd best give me that knife.
No, take it anyway. It's mine.
Henry, you're drunk. Now give it here. Give it here, I say.
No, I'll give it to you. Oh, it's this.
Oh. Henry, you stabbed me.
What? What have I done? Millie, speak to me. Oh, I didn't mean to do it, love. It's this knife. It's this cursed knife that made me do it. Oh, Millie, what have I done?
Poor Millie. Poor Henry. What's going to happen, Dr. Weird?
Well, I'll tell you. Can you keep something under your hat?
Somehow, Doctor, you remind me of something I was going to say, if you'll pardon the brief interruption. Under more and more hats these days, right inside, you'll find the familiar Adam crest of quality. It's no coincidence that these Adam hats are worn by well-dressed men. Men who know quality instinctively recognize the genuine superiority of an Adam in the fine fur felt, the expert craftsmanship, and the correct styles. What's more, Adam hats come in a wide choice of styles and colors and shapes. Triple assurance that you'll get the hat that's right for you. Next time you go stepping out, wear an Adam. People will notice the difference. Now let's step into the Hawkins house again. Dr. Weir.
And now to continue my story, the knife of death. The neighbors, hearing Mrs. Hawkins cry out as she was stabbed, called Corporal Mason, a bobby who was on duty nearby. When Mason entered the Hawkins house, he found Henry sitting in a chair, his face buried in his hand. Mrs. Hawkins was dead, the murder weapon on the floor beside the body. Corporal Mason notified Scotland Yard, and 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door.
Here we are, Hawkins. I'll answer the door.
Good evening, Corporal.
Good evening, sir.
I'm Inspector King of Scotland Yard. This is Sergeant Roberts.
How do you do, sir?
Good evening. Nasty mess. Nothing's been touched.
No, sir.
I presume this is the dead woman's husband?
Yes, sir. Henry Hawkins, his name is.
Now then, Hawkins, I must ask you a few questions. I warn you, however, that anything you may say may be used in court against you. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Very well. Hawkins, you confess to the murder of your wife?
Yes. I killed her. But it wasn't my fault. The knife, it drove me to it.
The knife drove you to it? I'm afraid I don't understand.
That knife, with its cursed blood-red handle, it made me do it.
It is a most unusual-looking knife with that blood-red handle. Strange.
What is, sir?
In some report or other in our files, I recall reading something about a knife with a blood-red handle. Now, where did I read that? Oh, well, never mind. Hawkins, where did you get that knife?
While I was coming off air raid duty tonight, I stumbled on it. It's a wreckage.
Where was this?
Miller Court, sir, right off Dorset Street.
Miller's Court? Miller's Court, you say?
Yes, sir.
By Jove, now I remember where I read about the knife with the blood-red handle.
Really, sir?
Yes. It was in the file of Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper?
Yes. In 1886, Jack the Ripper attacked a woman near Hanbury Street. The victim was found dying, but before she died, she muttered a few words about being stabbed by a knife with a handle red as blood.
Surely, sir, you don't think there's any connection between Jack the Ripper's knife and that one lying there on the floor?
Now, there's more to my story, Mason. Do you remember the name of Jack the Ripper's last victim?
Why, yes, it was Marie Kelly. She was murdered in November 1888.
Quite right, Corporal. Do you remember where her body was found?
Oh, no, sir. Can't say as I do.
Her body was found in Miller's Court, right off Dorset Street.
This court? Why, that's where Hawkins said he found the knife that's lying there on the floor.
Exactly.
You trying to tell us, Inspector, that the knife Hawkins found belongs to Jack the Ripper? Or that it's been lying in the street these past 50 years?
No. Not lying in the street, Corporal. What if, after Jack the Ripper had murdered Marie Kelly, he'd lost the knife at the scene of the crime? Say, for example, it dropped into a drain and the bombs that fell in Miller's Court last night turned it up again.
Oh, come now, sir. Why, next you'll be saying that Hawkins is right, that there is something about that knife that drives people to commit murder with it. There is, I tell you. There is. When you hold it in your hand, it seems to come alive. Drives you against your will to kill. Oh, you're daft.
Now, meaning, of course, that you think I'm daft, too?
Oh, no, sir. I didn't mean that, sir.
Well, I'll admit it's rather a wild theory. But what if it were true? Don't you see that might account for Marie Kelly being the Ripper's last victim? Once he lost the knife, he was no longer driven to murder.
But, sir, you don't really believe that knife has an evil force behind it, do you?
No, I suppose not, and yet Well, it's an interesting theory.
Oh, yes, sir, quite.
Yes, quite. Sergeant Roberts.
Yes, sir.
You remain here with Corporal Mason while I take the prisoner to Scotland Yard.
Yes, sir.
Nothing's to be touched, mind you. I'll send the technical staff over at once.
Very good, sir.
All right, come along, Hawkins.
Yes, sir. Say, Sergeant, isn't it about time they were retiring the inspector? He acts a bit balmy.
Here, have a little more respect there.
Oh, come off it. Even you've got to admit the old man sounds balmy. Imagine saying that the knife there on the floor once belonged to Jack the Ripper, and there's an evil force behind it.
The old man's always getting queer ideas.
Well, that's just about the queerest I ever heard. Yeah, it's an unusual knife, all right, with that blood-red handle, but evil force behind it.
Here now, don't you go picking it up.
Take it easy, will you? I'm using a handkerchief to pick it up, ain't I? Just want to take a closer look at it.
You heard what the inspector said. Nothing was to be touched.
You know, the handle does seem to sort of glitter and glow. It makes you feel warm inside.
Now you've done it. You put your hand all around the handle and spoil the fingerprints.
Feels good to hold it like this.
Mason, as your superior, I order you to put that knife down. Put it down, do you hear?
Makes you feel strong.
Here, give me that knife.
No, it's mine. Keep away.
You daft. Give it to me.
Stay away from me.
I'll teach you to disobey an order. You'll hand it over or I'll...
Take it from me, would you? All right, take it. Ah! He's dead. I killed him. This bloody knife. It drove me to kill him. I didn't want to do it, but it made me. Inspector, he must have been right. It's the knife. It is the knife of Jack the Ripper.
Too bad about poor Mason, wasn't it? But as everyone knows, a knife is a dangerous thing to play with. Particularly a knife with a blood-red handle that glows and glitters with a hypnotic force. What happened to it? It's under lock and key at Scotland Yard. And strangely enough, when Henry Hawkins and Corporal Mason were tried for murder, the death weapon wasn't offered in evidence. Inspector King was afraid to have anyone handle it. Oh, by the way, if you should ever come across a knife with a blood-red ruby handle, you have to go. Perhaps you'll drop in on me again soon. Just look for the house on the other side of the cemetery. The house of Dr. Weir.